You're ready. We are live on YouTube.
Great. All right. Welcome everybody to November 17th full design review board meeting for Reston Association. I am looking to establish a quorum. I believe we have 5 out of 9, so we do have a quorum, so we're good. I am looking for a motion to approve tonight's agenda.
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
A second.
A second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, motion passes. Do we have any minutes to approve, staff?
Yes, we have let's see, September 6th, October 20th, those two.
All right, do I have a motion to approve September 6th and October 20th meeting minutes?
So moved.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We have a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, motion passes. All right, so now I'm looking for any general member comments. These are for comments that would be not applying to any applications tonight. This is a public meeting, so any member is welcome to comment on anything about Reston that's not in reference to any applications tonight. I don't think we'll have any tonight. All right, so we are going to move into the agenda. So we have up first is 2231 Colts Neck Road, Hunterswood Fellowship House. If the representative could just raise their hand so staff knows who to unmute, and then they will I'll let you in. It looks like Carrie.
It's Christy.
Looks like I see a Carrie Thomas.
Carrie,
Okay.
hello, can you hear me? Hi,
Yes.
hi, sorry about that. I didn't know how to raise my hand on Zoom. I was looking for a
No,
little
you're good.
symbol. Hi, I'm Carrie Thomas. I'm with Minor Feinstein Architects. I'm the project architects for the Hunters Woods Fellowship House project. And I know Christy is on the board, is on this call as well. And she is the CEO of the Fellowship Square. So we do have that representation from ownership.
Staff, did you find Christy? Is she on right now?
Yep, we're getting her.
Okay, great. Are you starting the presentation, Carrie, or is Christy?
I am
Hi,
actually.
yeah, I'm on. I'm just here for moral support.
Perfect.
Well, and she's also here to speak a lot about Fellowship Square if that's needed, about the building as a whole and any of that information. If you're not familiar, it's a property that's 40 years old in Reston off of Colts Neck Road, 11 stories building. It has 224 dwelling units inside. This building opened in 1979 and has never really received any substantial renovation. So this is a well-needed renovation, both on the interiors, and we're also trying to do some things for the exteriors as well as of this project. The project itself, what we're trying to do, am I showing my screen or?
No, go ahead. We're having problems with our documents. If you want to go ahead and keep describing it.
Sure, no problem. I didn't know what I was supposed to be showing here. So what we've been doing is we've been really working with Hunters Woods, really listening to the residents, trying to find out the residents' needs. We've been doing, this is actually, we did a phase 1 of the project, which addressed the accessibility needs of the project. We did that through the Reston Design or Review staff review. It did involve adding ADA compliant parking in the rear, updating the ADA access ramps, and all of that work has now been completed. And we are doing some interior renovations for 12 ADA accessible units inside, as well as updating for 4 VHI or visual and hearing impaired units on the interior of the property. What we're coming to you today is for phase 2. Now, phase 2 is an expansion. We're doing a lot of stuff on the first floor of the building, and we're trying to really blend that line between the outside and the interior spaces. As we know with COVID and everything else that's happening, how precious fresh air is, especially for the senior residents. So they are very limited in the exterior amenities that they currently have. So this really is bringing forward and bringing out the project. If you want to go to slide number 11, that gives an overview right now of what we plan to do in the areas that we're working. The front is going to be an oversized porch. Right now there is a fabric awning that management has, actually it's in violation currently. They are often having to replace it. It gives very minimal coverage. There's not any real use of that front outdoor space. I think there are 4 or 5 park benches, and that's it. So it's a very limited use for the residents. We really want to activate that front of the unit, front of the building, and bring people in to welcome them into the building. And then that would mean in the return, in the back, we're doing a rear canopy and then a community garden. So if you'd like to go to slide 13, you'll see a before of the project. This is what we're talking about. And if you go to slide 14, you'll see what our proposal is. This is a almost kind of brutalist building. Again, 11 stories, lots of poured concrete. We are working with a post-tension concrete building. So we had to develop a concept to create a canopy that is actually a standalone structure. This is not tied into the building at any point. Post-tension concrete, we don't want to touch it. So we are staying away from that. So what we've done is we've actually gone to, if you want to go to slide 15 there, the next slide. You see we've really, the difference between the before and after, where we're providing an extended area of protection from the elements for the residents. If you can go to slide 16, you'll see a little bit more. What we're doing is we're tucking the canopy underneath the second floor balcony. So the balcony will actually provide some of the coverage in that transition between the standalone structure and the canopy. We have now brought the multiple variations of seating. Those brick half walls are actually could be seats or resting spots for the residents. This is an EIFS structure. It's actually a steel structure with EIFS covering. And we're really playing with the scale to bring people into more of a residential height and a residential feel inside this porch canopy. There are ceiling fans in there for their comfort. We also have, if you want to go to the next slide, we've added 2 trellises. These are trellises that are designed and manufactured by the Trek company. So that is a very durable, not having to be painted integral finish. And we are kind of blending in. So you have some areas of shade, some areas of full shade, partial shade, and sunlight. The division that we're creating between, if you want to go back one more slide, I'm sorry. The division that we're creating is purely with planters. We don't want to have something that's fencing in, but we want to give a protection and a feeling of security for these residents. There is a lot of foot traffic that's coming through and back behind the shopping center and going into the community center that's next door. So we want them to still feel a part of the environment, yet still feel that this is a private space. So they're part of the community, yet there's still this natural divider for them. So we have the planters, and that planter, the one planter is a brick construction. And if you want to go to the next slide, you'll see 4 fiberglass, smaller low-lying planters. Again, trying to break up that visual aspect. Thank you. Thank you for pointing that. And if you want to go to the following slide, one of the changes that we've done is we're proposing is changing the entrance to the building. The before slide shows that there was a glass vestibule that's actually under a roof. So what we're going to be doing is closing that in. So we're not actually changing the footprint of the building. We're still remaining within the footprint of the building. And we're simply opening a window to create a sliding door to go into what's now an internal vestibule. So we're going through with that. Go a little bit forward on the next slide, please. Again, this shows you a little bit of the example of the existing glass vestibule that was kind of underneath a roofed canopy, which is the Those are the as-built drawings from 1978. Everybody appreciate the hand drafting there. That's something we don't do anymore with our computer aid drafting. Hand drafted there, showing you where the poured concrete roof, basically, or the slab above, and then this vestibule was tucked underneath. So we're not changing the footprint of the building. All of the proposed elements and doors that we are adding to the exterior, we are matching the metal, which is a medium bronze. It's not dark bronze, it's actually a medium bronze that is going in for all of these the door openings that we're proposing. The next page, you'll see as we're removing the awning, we are also removing 3 windows to create 3 new door openings. The 2 door openings that are along column line 13, which is under the existing picture there, those will be entrances into the dining area of the space. So there will be now an indoor dining area experience for the residents, as well as an exterior dining residence area on that patio underneath what would be the trellis. So that kind of gives you that inside outside relationship with the dining. And keep going further down. Again, talking more about the doors, we do have, again, 1 sliding door at the main entrance. The other doors will be paired swing doors that are fob access, so they will be locked to anyone except for the tenants. Keep going down for that. The structural canopy, we have our drawings here of what we're proposing. We have a visual there for the height, and all of that information is on those drawings. And again, we're trying to keep it at a modest height. We're not really keeping in scale with the building, basically. We don't want to overwhelm anyone that's under there that's too high of a ceiling. So we're really trying to keep it at more of a residential level. Going down to EFIS, or the EFIS line of products. This is actually Parex is what we're using. We've used this on numerous other projects within our firm. Again, it's an integrated coloring, so it's not something that's going to need to be painted, and minimal upkeep just with power washing. So this is a great product for the ownership for long-term and longevity of the project. And you go down 1. We are having a loose lay ballast roof on the canopy. We chose that so that we could have river rock, so it reduces the reflectivity from the people that have the balconies above this this porch area or this portico area. So that way they don't have that high reflectivity of like a TPO deck. Keep going down there. Again, this is a view as you would be leaving what would be the new entrance. As you see, it is a cul-de-sac, or not a cul-de-sac, I'm sorry, a circular drive in the front of the building. So that still has that same entrance. Next page there. Reflected ceiling plan for the structural canopy. Again, recessed LED fixtures. We do want to have a warm glow with this. So we're looking for something along the 3000 Kelvin line so that we have that residential or homey feel. We don't want daylight at all in the structure. Next page. This is actually not part of our presentation. These fixtures are not part of our presentation. So I don't know how this got in there, but we do not have site lighting. We only have the under canopy lights. And then we do have some bollards in the rear that I'll get to, and they are actually replacement in kind of the bollards. So changes to front exterior, there's some evening shots for the lighting. Keep going down. Next slide, please. Okay, we are very aware of the importance of trees in Reston. And we do have 3 trees that we are proposing to relocate. Of course, that does mean that we'd be taking down and replanting. Those are the only 3 trees that we would be impacting on this site. And we will go through Fairfax County. We have not done that yet, but we did that in the rear of the project for phase 1. So we still have to do that, but we are coming to you first for your approval before going to Fairfax County. We do have the trees picked out and their locations shown on this plan. Next page, please. Again, we're talking a little about the exterior planters. fiberglass planters. It's actually a matte gray finish there. And I do have physical samples. I don't know if I can mail those. I'm not sure how it works with this new day and age of Zoom meetings, but I can provide physical samples to anyone who is interested. Keep going down. Again, another view of that front exterior. Next slide. These are the Trex canopies, or the trellises, I'm sorry. And next slide, these are just the designs. Again, they're all designed from them. They will have footers, concrete footers. We have a structural engineer on board. The finish is a vintage lantern, which is again a nice warm bronze. So we're matching what is occurring in the exterior windows that are existing. The next slide, this is the concrete front plaza. It is a very large expanse of concrete. It is currently in violation of the Reston Association. They are proposing for us to repave with concrete. And what we're hoping to do is actually, one more slide down, is to add a ADA parking instead. So this is something, of course, we'd have to have approval for, and it's just a concept for this point. It would allow residents, this would be a short-term parking. We are showing right now of 2 ADA spots. We actually would like to do 1 ADA and 1 temporary spot. These would be short-term parking, just to allow for ease of use for residents to load and unload where they're not blocking the fire lane. That cul-de-sac, or the cul-de-sac, I'm sorry, the circular drive is a bus route, and as well as a fire lane. So we do not want to have, and we unfortunately do, have cars that will park there and disrupt that service because they're trying to help their family member in and out of the car. So that would be, this is something that would actually help ease the traffic in this circle. Next slide. Going through talking about what our proposals are and how far they are from the property lines. The Reston Association, I'm sorry, the Fellowship Square and Hunter's Woods owns 2 parcels of property here. I just want to make that very clear that there are 2 parcels of property that combine into this one lot. Next slide. This is the rear entrance of the property. Again, we have the fabric canopy that's lacking the durability and not really a lot of coverage for the residents, and limited lighting. We're just doing a modification to what we had for the front canopy. Continue on, there you go. So the same type of proposal, again, sliding door. There is currently a power assisted door, so it's just going to become a slider door at that location. Some more views showing seating, showing aerials. And this is again the same type of roofing that's seen at the front. And then elevations and sections, again, showing you how that works. Now this is a little bit higher because we are trying to work around that existing exterior vestibule that's made of brick in the upper left-hand corner of your slide right now. Continuing on, there we go for the rear entrance at night to give you a visual of that. And as we move to the next slide, we're going to be going on to what I'm going to call the rear plaza. This is currently the only exterior amenity that the property has. It is a fenced enclosure. It does have angled windows, which are kind of greenhouse windows that are original to the building. So they're 40 years old. They are leaking both in air and water. So we have infiltration into the building that we're trying to prevent. So our solution here, if you'd like to go to the next page, is actually to come back with, instead of an angled storefront, we're actually coming back with completely vertical, removing basically the angle of the building. Continue on. Again, the window schedule shows you the sizing of the windows and what we're proposing. And then we have some renderings for you to show you the fenced area. And this currently just has seating on it. And what we're proposing is to provide planters for the residents. There's active garden population here. And we're proposing these raised planters that have wide lips so they can sit on these planters and be a part of an activity that's physical it's adding to the community. The desire for, they actually have a small plot garden at the south side of the building currently. And this is kind of just going to really advance that and give them a proper place to do plantings. And there is going to be a blend of the trees that are there are actually existing to remain. So those trees, as well as these planters that they have of evergreen planters that are going to be existing to remain and to reuse. So there will be some elements of year-round greenery, so that when the plantings in the winter, when their gardens have basically gone to bed, then we'll still have some green in that back. It'll still be a very beautiful space. As you will see with the next slide, we're incorporating adding a physical element into this garden or this back area. There are, this is the Greenfields fitness line. We are proposing currently with 3 pieces, because we initially, I think, have 5 pieces in our plan. But a recent change, we are taking away some of these pieces so that the tenants have a space for their Tai Chi. There's a very Tai Chi population here, so we want to make sure they have an open space as well. This is, again, another senior population, ADA, that's not ADA compliant, but we do have an ADA compliant piece that's located a little bit further up. Next piece there. Again, a plan view showing the proposed locations of where the planters are and how that relates to the garden and to the exercise equipment. And if you go on, the renderings that match the plan, and then night view, and then showing you some more shots of, this is actual from the brochure of the fitness. You see they do have accessible lines. It is for a senior population, and it is all exterior grade. And then there's some of these are not correlating to what we have selected. So I think I had provided almost like a specification manual, and that included the full line. So some of these slides that were picked out actually were put in not by our presentation team, but I think by your in-house presentation team. So there's a little bit of a discrepancy on some of this equipment. But I believe that ends the presentation.
Okay, great. Thank you. Very thorough presentation. I'm glad they're going to put some money back into the fellowship house. I do have a question about that equipment. So do you want to clarify which, are they all going to be relatively lower pieces of equipment? Because there is that one that's quite tall that has kind of, it almost looks like a seated press or something. Yeah,
if you want to,
is that one going to be part of the project?
Can we go down? I believe, let's see, I have it. Just looking. I'm trying to combine what you're showing and what I have here. So it would be, so number 60, page 67, these are the Tai Chi Spinners. What's shown is actually a 2-person Tai Chi. We're only doing 1. So it's only basically half of that. And the 3D illustration is not as accurate as looking at the picture, which is in the black and white. So that's more of a, so imagine just 1 person standing there instead of 2. So that is one piece that was selected. The secondary piece would be page 71. So that piece is a piece that we are looking at, which would be a assisted. So we do have people that are in wheelchairs. They could still do some accessible exercises, as well as with the resident that is. And so that one, let me see if I have a height for that on the, pulling up my fitness equipment. I can provide the height of that in just one moment. And then we did have an interest in the 4-person legs seated press, which would be page, let's see. That cut sheet actually isn't in your presentation, but I can provide that cut sheet and the heights. So give me 1 second.
Okay. Yeah. No, I just wanted to make sure we understood which three you guys were thinking.
Sure.
So, worst case, if we need a little clarification on that one, how tall it is, it shouldn't be an issue.
Right.
But I just wanted to put that out there while we were talking about it.
Yeah, we're very, we work with you. So if you have some clarifications that you guys would like to have, we're open to those design changes.
Okay, and then you had mentioned that you were going to get to a discussion about the bollards with lights potentially.
Yes, so we had actually submitted, our initial presentation was submitted on October 27th, and we had our photometric that was completed on the 11th, and I'd sent that to Jane, and I believe she was going to include it, but the photometric actually explained, and I have that.
It's in the supplemental, Sandra, it's on the supplemental document.
Okay, so yeah, this one, let's see, hold on 1 second. If you'd like to go to page 57. Is that, you see, oh yeah, page 57, you're gonna see the bollards. And they're existing bollards. And I think what did not convey is that I also provided a specification folder. And that specification folder had the, let's see if I can find the bollards. 1 second.
Maybe looking for slide 25 of the supplemental.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. 25. We have existing lighting that is in the rear. You see from the photo, existing bollards. We are shifting and repaving the back plaza. It is currently, again, 40 years old. The concrete is very worn. We are proposing actually reusing the bollards. So we're not really changing. There are not going to be new fixtures, and there's not a change to the photometrics in that area. So that's why we do not show those existing bollards.
Are you sure you don't want to replace them? They're a little bit older looking. They're not.
I know they do have. They're in the front of the building and along the entire front of an area that we're not actually pursuing. Let's see if we can go to a photo of the existing front from the beginning. You'll see that these go along the entire walkway, almost from the, let's go to page, slide 5, please. I know you can't see it from here. Oh, actually, that was a great slide that you were just on. I'm sorry, slide 3. So where you see point B, the letter B on the drawing, the bollards start there and they wrap all the way around the entire walkway and the entire site, both on the front and on the rear. So we weren't actually putting that in our scope of work. And since only 4 bollards would be affected, so that those are the 4 that are at the ADA ramps, we were just relocating them.
Gotcha. I guess the only thing I would say, I'm looking at just the street view of the property, and the bollards in the front actually look newer than that cut sheet you show with that what kind of wire cage on it. The ones up front look much nicer. That's the only reason why I suggested it. So maybe take a look at the front ones in the front, in the front of the property, and maybe if they want to match those, it looks like they were just replaced. I mean, the street view's from 2019, so it's not like it's an old street view. So maybe we match those or something. But I think from the presentation, I think that was good. So what I'll do is I'll go around and see if any members have comments, and then see if they have any questions for you. Okay, Carrie?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Mike B, did you have any questions or comments?
It was just one thing, since we were talking about the improvements to the rear. It's existing concrete sidewalk, for lack of a better phrase, and you had mentioned repaving, resurfacing. What manner of material was going back in there?
Again, it would be poured concrete.
Okay.
So it's the same material.
Just updating.
Just updating. But I do want to say that we are adding more impervious areas because we have the planters.
Okay.
The planters, there is a section on page, let me see right here.
And I had seen, I believe it's 66. Is that the cross section through the planters?
Yeah, exactly. So you see that it does go into the earth. So we're actually adding more, we're reducing the impervious area by doing that.
Understood. Was just,
Thank you.
it was one thing that I
Sure.
looking through this, I was just curious what the.
Yeah, it looks, I know on that rendering, it looks almost like it's a tile, but no, that's supposed to be poured concrete.
Fair enough. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Dan, did you have any comments?
No, I didn't. Everything was thorough and easy to understand. I've got nothing right now.
Okay. Scott, did you have anything?
Yeah, a couple things. So like on this, starting on this view on the patio. So what's interesting is like I totally get the removing the canted glass to mitigate air and water leakage. I guess my question was the fascia that you're adding here is of different color, but it's aligned with the white fascia. And to your point, like this is kind of a semi-brutalist, but it has these kind of white bands of fascia that run and kind of race across each level. And I was just wondering, I wanted to ask you a question, why changing the color there and not trying to blend it in with the white? So.
Well, Scott, I have to be completely honest with you. I have stared at this rendering for a while. Did never realize that is not intentional.
Okay.
It is to remain.
Okay. All right.
I've stared at this for months, and I have never noticed that. So that is actually, we have
I know exactly how that feels. So
I am going to call Jefferson right after this meeting. He is our renderer
okay.
within our firm. No, I'm still old school, that I learned how to draft in hand. So the 3D rendering to me, I got the CAD, I got the Revit, but when we start into getting this rendering, I do have to pass it on to another architect.
Yeah, no worries.
So Jefferson, no, that is supposed to still be the concrete. That we're not changing that at all.
Okay, great.
Good
that was
eye.
just
wow.
Okay. But I think
Sure.
as long as that's like, if it's a line.
Let's see if we can go to the before and after. Let's say maybe 52 of one of the photographs, or 50.
Yes.
So when you remove, I think this is a metal capping. So when that is removed, the concrete will remain.
Okay,
and
great.
On the interior of the project, I don't know if I have a view here in this presentation, you actually see that interior. So that concrete is existing, and that is just a metal flashing that's coming up top. So I think that's exactly where where Jefferson might have gotten that color from, but that is not the intent.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think just as long as visually it reads as if it's the
It will be
color.
it'll be a continuous band.
Great.
Because of the post-tension concrete, we are not touching any of that, and the openings are just going to fit underneath the plane of the building.
Awesome. No, that makes sense. Other question I had on the south side, the main entrance, you mentioned, so just to confirm, the columns that are supporting the ethos clad canopy, that's steel, is that going to be the medium bronze that's matching your, okay, great. And then secondly is lighting. You're showing all recessed can lighting. Is that consistent across? Okay.
Consistent across the canopy, and I did provide in the supplemental information, I did have the photometrics that were added. So that kind of shows you what we're doing with our light levels. Again, keeping it consistent and not overpowering. We definitely, with all the residents that live above, we are very dark sky compliant with everything just remaining within the canopy. And again, we do have these 60-inch fans that we have that would just be kind of circulating the air, keeping it comfortable for the residents.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. I think this, like where this is located, it's very active and it links in with the community center really nicely. So I think it's poised to be a great improvement. I did have one more question on, if we could please go to slide 44. It was about alignments, and I really appreciate the kind of 44, please. That's wrong.
For the rear entrance?
There was the
Oh, the
front
old,
entrance.
okay.
You had an aerial rendering that did a great job of showing the ADA parking you're providing.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I thought it was.
Try 44 on the, so the presentation that you're in right now, it would be either page 44 or page, let's see, 36.
That's it. Yeah, this one that's, whoops, sorry. 44 in the left hand. Yeah, this is great.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay.
So one question I did have was about alignments. Is it looks like the fascia here, like I really like how you've kept the width similar to the building. I think it does a good job like creating consistent language. I did have a question though, because you have like the top elevation, which is the banding between levels 1 and 2, and you have the parapet of the existing vestibule, then you drop down and then drop down again. And I guess, again, I appreciate you kind of keeping it at a human scale, not making it super, super tall, but I just had it seemed like almost a simple, straightforward way might be to like align them to that kind of fascia that wraps around between levels 1 and 2. But I just want to ask you about, I know on the north side, you're doing the stepping. Was that kind of the thought process here as well?
A little bit, and it's also dealing with roof drainage.
Okay.
We really want to keep the water running away from the building, so that's the stepping comes down. We do have downspouts that were drawn in the, which would be also the medium bronze color. Those downspouts are drawn on the elevations and the sections, and those are just taking the water and bringing it down to the grass area. And then there is existing, if you see from the site drawings, there are existing stormwater management and existing exterior drains. So that's all tying in together. So we have that kind of pulling away. We don't want to have any water that's coming towards the building. So we're really bringing everything down. And the angle, the reason why we kind of have that angle there is we're kind of mimicking, this is an interesting building that it's done on these two completely different axes. Yeah. And we're really, we're kind of playing with that inside as well. So these rooms and the push and pull of those rooms and how, you're in, what looks like a very standard straight north-south building, but then we have a lot of this diagonal kind of from the northwest to southeast diagonals and that counterplay of those axes. Okay.
Gotcha. Are you clearing though the heads of these windows with the canopy, or is the fascia above them or below?
It would be, let's see, from the renderings, I think a little bit deceiving. If we could please go to page, I want to see the section of the front, 18. Oh, wait, sorry, wrong slide. Hold on a second. It would be page 24. Try 24. Yes, 24.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Right, wait, one more up, 24. There you go. Okay, so if you see along the first page, if you go to the the first drawing, which is the one that's in the middle of the page, where the person figure is, that right side is the existing opening. So you see how it kind of tucks underneath. So that you're not really having any clearance issues with that existing opening.
Great.
And then again, the other section, that kind of shows you where the existing opening head height is.
Okay. Awesome. And my last question, I promise, is on slide 44 is the Trex canopy. Are you providing it in this location, or is this existing?
Yes. No.
Okay.
There are two. So I wanted to we wanted to
Okay.
balance that out. And
Okay,
again, not, we wanted to kind of mimic a little bit of the railings. There's railings on the second floor as well as on the 8th floor of the building.
okay,
So we're kind of mimicking the railings of there are a few select units that have these balconies. So we're kind of mimicking that and also trying to transition from a solid structure to, you know, an airy structure and to kind of bring in that in. So those two, the one on the right is somewhat functional because it's covering dining area. The one
Yeah.
on the left is really just there for balance.
interesting.
It's
Okay,
just, it's just to balance it. It's not really a,
yeah, it's not going to have any paving
No,
of any. Okay,
just going to be on grass.
gotcha. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Great questions.
Great, thanks, Scott. Karen, did you have anything?
Oh, I think these are really welcome changes, and I think it's going to be a really nice new.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, we really wanted to listen to the residents and what their needs were and what they would benefit from.
Yes, and I think there are a lot of thoughtful things in this, so I appreciate this.
Thank you.
Bruce, did you have anything?
No, I don't know. I think it's really well done. And well, Scott asked all my specific questions, so thanks, Scott.
I learned from you, Bruce. I learned from you.
No. That's the professional. Thank you. No, very good. No questions.
All right. So I only have a couple things. So for the planters, two main things: the planters in the back that are going to be made out of the wood. Is there a reason why to go to the board, kind of the board on the back structure, and not just do maybe stacked 6x6 timbers? I just worry about the longevity of that style of planter.
Again, this is the rendering. If we want to go to the supplemental, I had the rendering changed to correct that. So if you'd like to go to page, sorry, 61. Does it change on that one? Let me see. No, it still shows it as a vertical. The 66, page 66,
So,
detail 2.
Yeah, so what I'm seeing is right now the detail is using 2x6s.
Oh yes.
On 6x6 posts, and I guess what I've seen in the past is just when those walls, they just slowly, those 2x6s warp because they're just they're only 2x material, rather than just doing laid flat 6x6s, stack 3 of them up.
Oh, more of like a railroad trestle.
Exactly, like a retaining wall, like we would normally. It's just a standard that we kind of use and rest in a lot for a lot of retaining walls, or those kind of 6x6 or 8x8 stacked. They just longevity wise, they kind of last a little longer. I'm just worried about kind of the freeze thaw and the water kind of pushing those boards to warp them. It's a small detail. It's just something that I think from a longevity standpoint, it might last longer.
May I ask a question?
Obviously, it's a little more expensive, but yeah.
May I ask a question with that? How would you feel? One of the things that we were discussing just recently, actually, between the time of the submission and this, would be to change those to the fiberglass material. So it would be the same functional material as the front. There's not as many of them in the rear, but it would give that durability for the residents. I mean, for the ownership.
Yeah, no, I like the fiberglass idea. The only thing I worry is that you were talking about them being impervious area space. I don't know if you can get a fiberglass without a base.
No, it definitely, we could have not. But the brick planters were the impervious ones. So those were the front. If you go to slide 64, please. So the brick planters are the ones that create the perimeter. One thing that's very noticeable about the space is the proximity to the towpath. And there is a concern with the homeless population. So we did want to make sure to kind of make it more of a fence, almost like a stone fence or a masonry fence around this area. So everything that's on the exterior of the plaza would be the masonry. So the ones that would be against the windows would be the ones that are on the concrete. It's on a concrete pad that's actually slabbed.
Gotcha.
It's a 5-inch raise there. Exactly.
Okay.
So that's
Yeah,
a 5-inch.
yeah,
So
sorry.
those could easily all become fiberglass, and then you don't have that issue of longevity that you just mentioned.
Yeah, no, I think that's a reasonable option as well, and then they kind of integrate to the front
To the
as
front,
well.
yeah. It's funny you should say that. I mean, Christy can vouch for me. We were just discussing this as well. So that's a very accurate and insightful comment, and something that we would easily change.
Okay, great. And then I swear I saw the detail when I was reviewing these, but I can't find it now. For the rear canopy gutter, I know you mentioned that they're going to be surface gutters. They're not internal drains, correct? They're going to be mounted on the outside. The only one I was worried about was on the rear entrance. It seems like it's kind of dumping it right onto the sidewalk kind of area. And I wasn't sure if it made sense to maybe slope that one back to more of the planter area, so you could just put the water into the ground versus putting it onto the road there.
Yeah, we're trying to minimize. We also have a transformer there, so we don't want to dump water. It's a very fine line of where we can dump it. So we're trying to go, that was a good shot that was just there. We're trying to align it basically with one of the posts. So it'll look like it'll come down with the column and go into that planting bed.
Okay.
I think,
great. Yeah, I'm sure you guys are thinking about it. I always like to get water off the sidewalk just because it always more winter time. It just creates more of an issue, especially with an older population that may not see it.
No, that's a very,
have a little bit more of an issue.
It's a very concern, and we have our civil designers. We do have a civil firm that is handling all of that and doing the application to Fairfax County. So those concerns are all well documented in their drawings.
Okay, great. And then, sorry, one last thing, the front grass area that's proposed. So right now it's kind of like mulch with the trees. So there's the 3 trees that you're removing that were kind of part of the original landscaping here. There's kind of similar trees planted around the front face. Is there a reason why you didn't want to put them right back kind of in that kind of open grass area, and why you wanted to kind of keep that entire face of the building open rather than trying to provide some additional shade from trees there?
The trees right now in the location that they are would limit the amount of coverage that we could provide for the residents. These plazas that we're creating are, and let's see, the tree plan was a really good shot to show that, where they're actually located. Hold on one second. Tree location plan, page 35, or let's see. 26, yeah, that's it there, 24.
Yeah, 35.
Okay. So if you want to zoom in on the right side of the page, you'll see how close they are actually to the building. And in order to keep those trees remaining, we would have to have basically an 8-foot or 4-foot square around that root. And we want to keep that as in soil. And when doing so, then we couldn't have an accessible plaza. We wanted to make the plaza wide enough so we did have rooms for wheelchairs and walkers to go with between tables.
Right. No, I wasn't saying to keep those trees. I was just saying you're basically from the site plan. You're saying to move the 3. You know, you're planting 3 trees.
I see.
In 3
you want to
different
put
spots.
them.
I see. And I'm just wondering why. What the rationale of not putting them back in that? You know, now that you're getting, I appreciate that you're getting rid of a lot of that concrete, because there's a ton of concrete there that's really not necessary.
Yeah.
And so it looks like you have kind of a planter bed or grass or something planned for in front of those planters. And I was curious, what was the rationale not to put, maybe a tree back in that area to provide some natural shade back for the residents in the future?
It was a little bit about making sure that the tree had enough soils, because it is still a limited area. And we wanted to, when we're replacing the tree, we want to replace it with something that is going to be a better tree. You know what I mean? A larger, a more substantial tree that would grow. And so the ones that we're proposing are of equal or greater size. So we're trying to really keep up with the arborists and everything else that happens in Reston. So I think if we would put a tree in, it would be minimal, and I'm not sure if that would be approved.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how big the strip of land was, but that was more of just the kind of rationale
Yeah.
behind my question. But I think it was a great presentation. I appreciate the thoroughness and then the overall scheme of it. I think it'll be a great addition to the fellowship house. So I want to see if anybody would like to make a motion or if we have any other comments from the board. No other questions. Does anyone want to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the application as submitted.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second,
Who seconded it? Mike?
Mike.
Yeah.
All right, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion?
There was some discussion about the planters in the rear, about,
Yeah, that's what I was going to clarify.
why don't you do that now?
So there was two things I wanted to clarify. Was the planters in the rear would be the fiberglass to match the front, and that the bollards in the back to be upgraded to match the front bollards. I just think that'll look better overall. Is that all you were thinking, Bruce?
Yeah, those are the
Okay.
only things that we thought about changing.
Yeah, and then, so Scott, would you accept those two modifications to your motion?
Definitely.
All right, Mike, do you accept those?
Yes.
All right, so we have Scott and Mike accept the amendment to the motion. So the motion is to approve with the exception of the back planters to be changed out to the fiberglass to match the front, and that the bollards in the rear to be replaced to match the ones in the front. We have a motion, we have a second, so I guess we'll take a vote now. So all those in favor say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? All right, the motion passes. All right, thank you, Carrie.
Thank you guys very much. Have a great day.
Good luck with the project.
Thank you. Thank you. Come visit.
We will.
Thank you so much.
All right. Moving on. We have application G. We have Vantage Hill condominium infill project. I know we have some affected parties. Staff, do we want to hear the presentation and then hear the affected parties?
Yes, please.
Does that work the best way? All right.
Yeah.
So if we have the representatives from Vantage Hill, just for any affected parties on, just know that you will get to speak after the presentation. We'll hear their presentation, and then we will hear the affected parties, and then the design review board will discuss. So if anyone from Vantage Hill is on, take it away.
Just one moment. Okay. We're just unmuting right now.
Great. Can you hear me? It's Lynn Strobel with Walsh Colucci.
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. So again, my name is Lynn Strobel with Walsh Colucci, and I've submitted this proposal. And I'm here this evening with representatives of Vantage Hill Condominium and Craftmark. This application has been presented to you several times, most recently at a work session on October 1st. And we listened. There were a lot of comments. There was a lot of very good discussion. And we have made some additional revisions to the proposal. And so we're here tonight asking for your conceptual approval. We still have to go through a county approval process, which we will do, but would like to have hopefully your conceptual approval and then we will come back to you with additional details when those are available. So right now, I think I'm going to turn it over to Rob Schulman with Vantage Hill Condominium. We also have with us this evening Rob Malm with Craftmark and Aaron Vinson from Walter L. Phillips, the civil engineering firm. So Mr. Schulman, I'll turn it over to you to talk a little bit about this proposal that you've been working on, I know, for quite some time. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Lynn. And thank you for the DRB for hosting us again. So just very briefly, I know we've touched on this a lot, but I just wanted to touch base again and remind the board that this is a project that was initiated by Vantage Hill. And it basically encompasses doing something with our failed pool property, and essentially using that property and doing a small development on that property in conjunction with Craftmark Homes, who's our partner in this, in order to fund infrastructure rebuild inside of Vantage Hill, which is a like the Fellowship House, a 60-year-old set of buildings now that needs significant infrastructure improvements to get it up to modern standards. Vantage Hill itself is 152 units of market rate homes, very much workforce housing, beautiful grounds, but our buildings need a ton of work. And the pool area has now been an issue, hasn't been used in 6 or 7 years at least, and really needs, is essentially almost a blight on the area, quite frankly. And none of us there are proud of it. But within Vantage Hill, we have very strong support inside of our community. And the goal here is to use the proceeds from this development in order to rebuild the infrastructure inside of Vantage Hill. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Robbie Malm, who can talk about what changes we've made since the last time we talked with you all, with an excellent set of comments. And I think you'll see that why we like Craftmark, which is they actually listen and pay attention and try to help solve and come to a common solution that works for everybody involved. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Lynn. This is Robbie Malm with Craftmark Homes. I guess first I'd just like to say thank you for your feedback so far in the process. I do think it's helped mold the project and create a more desirable and hopefully attractive design. Just to remind everybody, I'm going to mention some of the comments that were brought up in the work session back in October, so you know what we were thinking about when we went back and we made the revisions we did. We were asked to consider to limit or lower the elevation of the site to reduce the fill and lower the buildings in the alley. We were asked to show an additional section running north-south to show how it relates to Mediterranean and Colston cluster. Limit or maybe preferably delete one of the retaining walls we were showing, the retaining wall we were showing on the south side of the site adjacent to the trail. Also, we were asked to maintain access to the trail throughout construction. A comment brought up about private courtyards in front of the units for each of the units. More details on the on using or the possibility of using RELAC. So the question came up about the setbacks and with the goal of how can we soften the fronts instead of having one monolithic block of buildings. We were also asked to consider a front load garage townhome design or something that would face the interior of the site. You also wanted more information on stormwater management design, more information on the overall context in the parking plan in Vantage Hill as a whole, more information on the landscaping plan in the pre and post conditions as it relates to the tree canopy calculations. And 2 other comments were brought up on construction, worker hours, and parking. So I'd like to start by touching on a few of the comments which we have researched to determine if we could actually incorporate them into the design, but we've actually decided that an alternative approach is desirable. and then I'll go into all the changes we were able to make. The first one is one I know many people in Reston are familiar with, and that's the RELAC system. So we have given this serious consideration. I've spoken with several of our HVAC contractors and a representative from RELAC, Mark Waddell. And after studying and weighing the potential benefits, which I do see the potential benefits, we've still determined that this might not be a possible system to use in a new townhome community. One of the reasons is simply that, it is an old system. It's about 50, 55 years old. And while we understand that infrastructure improvements have been made in recent years and dependability has improved, it is still primarily reliant on an old system and an old component based in grid. And so it's difficult to know for certain the dependability of the system. And that uncertainty is something we have trouble conveying to our future homeowners. There's also been some differences in construction practices over the years. Our new homes have an advanced air sealing system, and that creates a very, very tight building envelope, which improves efficiency by limiting leakage, air leakage that is, but it also creates challenges with indoor air quality and humidity. So these efficient buildings rely heavily on their HVAC systems for the ventilation to balance this indoor air quality problem. The system turns on and off at set times throughout the year, and this restricts our residents' ability to turn on and off the system. I know this past week we had a stretch of pretty hot weather, and as far as I understand it, you wouldn't be able to cool your home during that time. And the other problem kind of has to do with statutory warranty requirements for new home construction. The RELAC assembly inside a home is not a set system from a manufacturer. It's more of a combination of parts and pieces. And only a limited number of companies are experienced to install or service this. So it could create some statutory warranty requirements where we're required to offer certain warranties with our new homes. And it could also create, problems for maintenance down the road. I know there's a set group of contractors that can maintain these, but it kind of seems like a non-competitive or even limited market, which might not be in the best interest of the homeowners. So, alternatively, I understand the benefits we may not be able to realize, but I know the noise related to a typical HVAC system was one of the reasons or benefits of RELAC. So we can offer to use modern dual stage or variable rate compressors with sound blankets for insulation. These units run at significantly lower rates on average, and the decibel level is much lower than a common single stage unit. They're also more efficient and offer a higher SEER rating, and we would locate them as discreetly as possible behind the units and look at ways of further screening them as well. So I know I just went over a lot of information as it relates to RELAC. So as I go through our responses to these comments, I'd like to break a few times along the way and I guess ask for any questions, if that's an all right format to proceed with. So this is one of those times I'd like to see if I have any questions as it relates to RELAC.
Yeah, so I know I've been a big proponent of it. I do understand RELAC has its challenges. What I'm curious about, and maybe legal can give me a little input here, Anthony, is can we require a certain decibel level for HVAC units be required as part of our approval? Because to me, that's not really a design guideline per se.
I'd have to look into that. I don't believe so. But I'd have to look into the guidelines and see if we have anything on that.
Okay. Yeah, because the only thing I think is, I know in the presentation tonight, there's not many, I don't think you have any renderings of kind of what you guys conceptually think these look like yet. I know we saw some in the work session, and that was probably just very diagrammatic. Is there any way to maybe try to get these up on the roof and up out of sight and up above, so if there is any noise that it's, kind of up higher in the air and it's going away already?
These were going to be pitched roof townhomes, which aren't really conducive for, they're not flat roofs where you can put units up there. I will say, the next phase of design where we are showing you architecture, we can provide more information on how these units can be located. And we have had projects in the past where the rears have been visible, and this has been a concern. And we were able to soften their appearance by, using screening and vegetative screening, in the small islands between driveways, maybe even narrowing our driveways a little bit to create more room so plantings would be able to, survive there. It's helped visually screen them as visually as well as from sound. So that's something we could do on the, the next round when we get into the architectural details.
Yeah, because that was something I was going to bring up today was the alleyways, and if you guys don't do RELAC, how messy and crowded those alleyways get that with that. And, if you're going to use gas meters, et cetera, et cetera. So did anyone else have any comments about the RELAC specifically from the board?
Well, I was trying to understand whether conceptually the fact that we had requested them to consider RELAC, and so now we have to consider the location of the units and the screening of the units, whether that's appropriate to put off or that it should be part of the concept. I'm trying to understand that.
Yeah, I think I'm wrestling with the same thing. So I think it could be maybe something we talk about later with the whole concept of the alleyway and see what people are kind of thinking about it. Because I do think it's going to be important where those AC units go, if that is going to be the position they're going to take. So yeah, I agree, Bruce. Does anyone else have anything in reference to the RELAC? Any ideas or anything? No? Okay. So I think that's all we have for now, Robbie, but I'm sure it'll come back up.
Sure, that's fine. I'll continue on and I'll stop for another opportunity for questions here as soon as I cover some more info. Another question that came up that we wanted to look into is a front load townhouse design. So we did consider, flipping these units, having them face the interior of the site, and what that would do to the site as a whole. And we thought that it actually created more problems than solutions. Primarily, because such a layout would require an expanded development area, which means more clearing and more grading. And all along, we've been trying to limit those two things specifically and create the smallest footprint as we possibly could. This is mostly because it requires a larger vehicle and pedestrian space in the middle, and this pushes the buildings closer to the periphery. And it also reduces this buffer along Wainwright Drive, which we've worked to create. So in these ways, we'd actually be going backwards into some of these categories. It also encouraged further into the green space on the southeast side, something else we've been trying to protect all along. It reduces the overall open space, and it would actually increase the amount of fill. And because the units would be pushing further into the green space, it would require more retaining walls. The current design we have right now actually doesn't require any. The other comment that came up was a suggestion to consider fenced-in private courtyards in front of the units. And while I certainly see the benefit for the unit owners to have that space, there's some other considerations that we were weighing. As basically it would privatize what would otherwise be common open space, and it would be only benefiting a few specific unit owners of the townhouses. The private fenced-in areas would be very visible from the surrounding clusters and general pedestrian view. And we feel this could be difficult to control the appearance of these spaces and how the unit owners would use these spaces differently, putting up tables, chairs, umbrellas, or toys. Certain to extent, this could be controlled by, an association, but it's still going to create, it's not going to be an HOA managed common green space, for example, which is professionally landscaped and can be enjoyed by everyone. And it creates a more pleasant and, I guess, consistent appearance. So for those reasons, we thought leaving them open and landscaped and maintained by the HOA was a preferable design. And my next group of comments are things that we were able to change. So I would like to stop right now again and just say if there's any questions as it relates to those two items, we can talk about them, and then I'll move forward.
Does anybody have any? Go ahead, Bruce.
My understanding is that everything we're saying here is based on the number of units you want to maintain. In other words, all this is based on the number, getting them this minimum number of units on the property. So the questions that we're talking about being outward, all these questions are assuming this number of units. Is that, am I correct in that?
Or a lesser amount. I mean, the front load townhouse design that we did draw up in concept had many less units. Sorry. So, but even with the lesser amount of units, the changes that I explained were still there. And in fact, to get, I think we had a layout of something in the low 20s, but it required curb cuts on Vantage Hill Road also. So it was, again, a reason why we steered away from that concept.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, go ahead, Tony.
The answer to your question. Pursuant to deed section 6.1B2, this committee may consider the location of proposed improvement or alteration, relevant portion, the impact of noise.
Okay. So we could conceivably put a requirement on HVAC units to meet a certain decibel level or be below a certain threshold.
You may certainly consider that, yes.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm just going to add something, Mike, about the courtyards versus the landscaped open space. I know that there's a more modern preference, definitely on the part of developers, to put a lot of stuff into common HOA space that can be maintained by a management company. I don't know that that's necessarily better. I don't know that that's necessarily often enjoyed per se by the residents as a whole. So that's part of the reason I'd recommended the potential for like some private courtyards in the first place, and not necessarily something that's I think is worth pressing. However, I will say I've seen in a number of cases in some of our clusters that within those private courtyards is where some of these HVAC units are contained, and having the walls around them actually will help deaden the noise somewhat.
Okay, thank you. If we go to, I think it's the third slide in the lineup. So once the visuals start, so starting on slide 9, it would be slide 11. This in red, we'll leave this one up as I go through some of the changes we have made since our work session. One of the key changes, which has allowed us to address many of the comments, was we eliminated the entrance on Vantage Hill Road, which is going to be the entrance on the top left of the site. This was a controlling factor because it basically set grade for most of the site, having that tie-in, which is existing, set grade for much of the alley and for the townhouse elevations. So by eliminating this, we've been able to improve the design, I think, on more than one front. This allows us to drive the alley grade as low as necessary. And I have another exhibit that will kind of show this a little better in the next couple slides, but we'll leave it here for now. We can, by lowering the grade, we've eliminated the retaining wall on the south side by the trail. We can avoid any relocation of this trail, and we can maintain access to the trail during construction. We can get, lowering this grade, we can get closer to having a full level from the front entry down to the garage level at the alley, which creates a more efficient grading scenario. and allows us to use less fill on the site. It helps us increase the tree preservation area on the south and east sides of our development because we're not grading as far into that area. The entrance that we deleted, while it is existing, it actually doesn't meet current VDOT standards for entrance separation. This is an existing condition, so it would typically be allowed to remain. However, in this instance, we do feel it would benefit the site and improve the clearances and other things if it was removed. Like I said before, it reduces the amount of fill that would need to be brought in, and it frees up room. This is also an important one. It frees up room for landscaping and monument signage and other features around the corner, which would enhance the appearance of the corner and create a continuous buffer around that side of the development. Removing the entrance also clears up a little trickier of a turning movement, particularly for units 19, 20, and 13. They don't, people won't be coming in from that direction as they're pulling in and out of their garages. And not directly related to this change, but I'll touch on it now, is the way this site will be built. We will be able to house construction worker parking primarily on site. After site work's complete, we'll be building the building or the development one building at a time. And we do have the parking area on the upper right-hand side, which we'll be constructing, which we can, partially utilize for smaller cars during that time also. And we are, we're looking to, limit construction worker hours to something reasonable. So that's something we can agree to. If you go to the next slide, I think this is an important one also to show the reduction in grade along the site. You can see the red line is our previous submission to you. You can see the black lines are our current submission. You can see how much it's been lowered. So it's been lowered about 5 feet on this section line here. And I'm sorry, if we go back one more slide, there was one more point I wanted to make. The numbers running through the alley, -1, -3, and then down in the bottom, -5.9. This is the amount we've been able to lower the site in those areas. So you can see it's getting progressively greater as you go down to the south side. So on the south side, we've almost lowered the site by 6 feet. And one more thing I'd like to point out here is the building fronts. If you look along all the buildings, but the ones along Vantage Hill Road, that's where the comment came up. We were asked to vary the setbacks or create a more undulating front to soften those units. And so we've incorporated into our design a series of jogs in the foundation that run the full height of the building to create this softening effect. Okay, we can skip ahead to the next two slides again, where the section slides. We have two sections, the one you just saw running east-west, and this is the north-south section. You can see there's still been there has still been a reduction in height, a little less in this section of the site. This is tying in on the right side to the Vantage Hill condo drive, but it still has gone down by a few feet. And the next slide here is going to talk about the impervious area and drainage. I'm going to hand it over to Aaron Benson with Walter Phillips. He's the civil engineer on the project, to discuss this slide and the next.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Aaron Benson with Walter Phillips, and I get to talk about the fascinating stuff like impervious area and stormwater. Just a quick overview of what you're seeing on this sheet. Basically, what we're attempting to show you here is how much impervious area we're dealing with today, and as the site exists today, and then what we expect to have tomorrow at post-development. And so, just some brief numbers here. We are going to increase impervious area by roughly 11%. We're pretty happy with the layout that we have and how we've attempted to stay pretty close to the existing pool deck and the footprint of existing impervious area. And so we feel pretty fortunate that we're going to be able to accomplish this with just an 11% increase in impervious area. The other thing that we talk about here is curve numbers. Curve numbers are basically a unitless way of quantifying land cover. The higher the curve number, the more runoff it's going to generate. So our curve number overall for our site under the existing condition is an 89. Under the proposed condition is a 91. And so we're looking at a roughly 2.25% increase in curve number, which is going to relate to the runoff, stormwater runoff figures that I'm going to talk about on the next slide, if you can go to that one. So this is the really fascinating stuff here. Basically what you're seeing here on these hydrographs, the top 3 hydrographs moving from left to right on the top row are the hydrographs for the 1, 2, and 10-year storm events. And that is in the existing condition. And then on the bottom, you'll see the 1, 2, and 10-year storm event hydrographs under the proposed condition. And so what we're trying to show here, one of the things we heard from you last time is that there is concern about how runoff from our site will affect stormwater channels and storm sewer systems between our site and Lake Ann. And so we looked at a preliminary detention design, and we wanted to share some of this with you. What you can see on the bottom here, the red is sort of how the SCS method, or TR55, as you may have heard, models storms, where you get a peak sort of in the middle of the storm, and they model storms based on a 2-hour duration. So what we're trying to show you here on the bottom is basically with the detention system that we have designed and the limited increase in impervious area, what we're looking at is, in round numbers, for the 1-year storm, which is the most frequent storm, that's the one that, you know, statistically you should experience once every year, but in reality we experience a little bit more than that, a little more frequently than that. We're going to reduce the runoff relative to existing conditions. We're going to reduce the runoff by roughly 75%. So it's a significant reduction in runoff. And that's even with an increase in impervious area. We're doing that for 2 reasons. 1, because of the systems we're designing, and then 2, because of the fact that the site today is not treated by any sort of stormwater. And so as soon as we introduce stormwater, you're going to see a reduction in the amount of runoff leaving the site. And then the 2-year and 10-year storm events, what we're going to see is that we're going to reduce the peak runoff from those storms by at least 10%. And so overall, we feel pretty good about where we are from a stormwater standpoint. This is our starting point. We expect that as we go through zoning and continue through our entitlements, we're going to introduce additional stormwater measures to work with input from staff. And so we expect at a minimum, we'll reduce the 1-year storm by 75%, the 2-year storm by 10%, and the 10-year storm by 10%. So we are feeling pretty good about where we're at right now. Any questions on that?
Yeah, I just had one for the, I just was peeking to the slide after you with the new spaces that we're relocating to other spots in Vantage Hill. Does all that water come down this way, or does that runoff go a separate way?
That goes in different directions. So generally it's going to make its way, that there's sort of a high point that runs through the site from the southwest corner to the northeast corner. And part of our runoff goes to a stream channel to the north of our site. And then part of our runoff goes to the south into the same outfall that our proposed development site will follow.
So do you predict that to impact the kind of adding stormwater? I mean, it looks like maybe if it potentially goes through about the middle of the site, you're maybe looking additional, 30 spaces or so of water. So, 10 by 20, so that's 200 square feet times 30, 6,000 square feet or so of additional, or am I doing that math right? 10 times 20 times 30.
Yeah. You're in the ballpark.
Does that make sense? Will that kind of impact? Is that coming towards this detention facility, or is that just going somewhere else?
That's a good question. So it is not likely, those additional spaces are not likely coming toward our treatment and detention systems. We expect those increases to be incremental, but at the same time, we're going to be obligated to reduce the amount of runoff from pre-development for that area too. And so you should expect in those areas, even though those are not included in the calculations I just went over with you, you should expect a roughly 10% reduction in runoff from those areas as well. And that will come through introduction of additional smaller localized measures around the work areas.
And that's something that's going to be done under your site plan process with the county, correct? It's not going to be separated out and left to Vantage Hill to do, right?
No, that's right. One of the things, we will have to demonstrate that we maintain existing parking. So this would all be one package from an approval and permitting and construction standpoint.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think that'll just help make sure that there's nothing kind of, doing one piece here and one piece there, and there's something forgotten in the middle. So, does anyone else have any other questions about the stormwater runoff?
Is it all underground?
Yes, ma'am. What we're proposing right now is one central underground system. It would be a storm tech chamber with isolator row, which is basically arches underground that sit on a gravel base and store water there. And then there's actually a filtering mechanism in there as well. So it removes pollutants and detains the runoff underground.
On some of the plans, it looked as though the area where it used to go through, you reduced the entrance there. It looked like there was a maybe a swale, stone line swale that goes for part of it, but it doesn't do that. It goes underground right away.
There is an existing stone channel that goes through our site today, and it continues to the north along the trail that heads toward Lake Ann. We are proposing to keep that channel in place as it exits our site, but for the portion within our development limits, we're going to pipe that. So we're going to collect it basically at the street, at Vantage Hill and at Wainwright, and pipe it through a storm sewer, underground storm sewer system, where we will then detain it, treat it, and then release it over time into that existing stone channel.
Yeah. Staff, could you go to slide 11 real quick? So Karen, you kind of see the dashed, the kind of black and white thicker lines that lead to that detention facility that's underground. That's all underground piping, basically, that's kind of working its way in a multitude of directions to get to that detention facility, and then released into that existing stone, stream that's along the trail there.
It looks like there's it daylights where that solid line is. I think it says 1 above it.
That's right. That's the proposed outfall. You're right.
That's where it daylights. It's just that there were still in the drawing was still showing some stone lined areas that were not on after that.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, this drawing is a little busy. What we're trying to get across here is to show both existing conditions underneath the proposed conditions. And so you will see some of those existing conditions, even though they're going to be replaced through what we're proposing.
Right, thanks.
Does anyone else have any other comments about the stormwater? Nobody? Yeah, I guess the only thing I would say is that I really like how you guys were able to eliminate that entrance and really drop the site back to its original topography. I think that's really going to go a long way with fitting into the others neighborhoods kind of in the area. So it's where a lot of them do, where they kind of have these kind of steep slopes off of Wainwright or wherever it be to get down kind of to the houses or I think it's a good fit. So I do appreciate you guys listening and kind of incorporating that.
Thank you. Thank you. We do have 2 more slides to touch on before our presentation concludes. It was this slide right here is where we left off. I know we've touched on this before, but we are asked to, reintroduce this overall context plan, which showed the parking spaces. So I'd just like to remind everybody, and again, we touched on this, but we will be replacing the parking spaces 1 for 1. And this will be done as part of our development, as part of our responsibility, and not left to Vantage Hill or anyone else. And the next slide, again, I'll hand this over to Aaron, but this is a landscaping and tree preservation concept plan, which you can speak to. Sure.
So a few of the moves we've tried to make in response to what we heard from you guys last time have resulted in us being able to save some additional trees, which increases the amount of existing mature tree canopy we can keep. That's happened primarily in the lower right corner of this view. We've been able to pull our limits of disturbance back in closer to the development, so we've been able to save a few more trees in that lower right corner. We also have been able to completely avoid the trail. We're not getting anywhere near the trail except for one linear sanitary sewer installation. Whereas before we had some grading and retaining wall near that trail. And that matters because there are a lot of mature trees. As those of you in Colston Cluster know, there are quite a few mature trees between the trail and our southern lot line. And so we had always intended to save those, but we feel very good that we're leaving that existing trail as a complete barrier today. So any trees on the south side of that trail will remain and should not be impacted whatsoever. There's some sort of canopy tabulations in the lower left-hand corner, and I know you've seen those, but just some highlights there. Overall, we're going to be saving roughly within our project limits, which I'm defining as the to the east, the existing Vantage Hill apartment building closest to us, Vantage Hill Road to our north, Wainwright to our west, and the trail to our south. We're going to be preserving roughly 34,400 square feet of existing tree canopy. We're also going to be adding roughly 19,500 square feet of new plantings. And so overall, we're going to end up with about 53,000, just short of 54,000 square feet of tree canopy within our project limits, which is a reduction of about 12,000 square feet total canopy within our project limits. So again, we're pretty happy with how many trees we've been able to save and how many trees we've been able to add. And then the last thing I'll add there is just that when we looked at, the Vantage Hill residents are concerned about this area in particular, but also about the larger community. And so when we look at the amount of trees that we're able to preserve, what we're looking at is with this development is a relatively small 4% reduction in tree canopy across the entire neighborhood. So we feel pretty good about where we're at. In the lower right-hand corner, you'll see just our preliminary plant pool, which are some of the trees that we would expect to choose from here as we move forward. Any questions on landscaping?
What is the width of the planted area along Wainwright between the sidewalk in front of the units and the, I guess there's the other sidewalk that is along the street?
Right, that is roughly 25 feet.
And how about on the Vantage Hill Road, where you've increased, there's a row of trees there that weren't there before?
That is just over 8 feet, roughly 8.5 feet between the sidewalk and the existing curb on Vantage Hill.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, my question was, so for that same area along Wainwright Drive, you're showing trees. Are you guys proposing to relocate that entire sidewalk along Wainwright Drive to create that median strip to be bigger? Because right now it's only about 2 feet wide max. And there's no way a tree is going to survive there.
We're proposing a new sidewalk along the frontage, which will enable us to create a larger landscape strip. And let me double check. I think the landscape strip we're proposing is between 6 and 8 feet. Let me just confirm.
Yeah, because I almost hesitate to put, so right now Wainwright Drive, when it's utilized, most of the time there's maybe 4 cars that park there, right? But when there's people who go to Wainwright Park on the weekend, there's probably closer to 40 cars. And what I worry about kind of congesting that street with all those trees kind of along that sidewalk median, I just can't foresee them ever surviving or living or really see that as a foreseeable planning spot. So I almost would rather keep that Wainwright Drive sidewalk where it is and get those trees on the other side, but kind of back where it is now. It seems like a lot of effort to try to move that entire sidewalk for along the street.
Yeah, I think that's something we're happy to look at. Our general goal here with the plantings along Wainwright was to be able to try to respond to some of the concerns we heard from you guys earlier about we don't want these houses feeling like they're up on the street, right? So we've lowered the grade. The houses will sit lower than they would have otherwise relative to Wainwright. We're trying to pack as many rows of trees in there, and we want it to sort of have a natural rhythm in terms of the tree plantings, because we want these over time, these houses to take on the look and feel of some of the clusters around us. So, you know, that was sort of our motivation. But with that said, you know, I don't know that it hurts our feelings to try and keep the sidewalk there and move some of the trees around. I expect we'll have to work through.
To me, it's just going to cause. Yeah, to me, it just caused a lot more issues for you, because it's kind of a severe drop off as soon as you go to the other side of that sidewalk right now. So to try to move it, I mean, it's going to be, I mean, that'd be an undertaking. So I didn't know if it was just a graphical thing that you guys thought you had more room there than you do. But I don't know. We may want to look at just kind of recalculating how that affects if you guys can kind of put the sidewalk where it should be, and then recalculate what trees can actually fit in that area. Because these trees here you're proposing are just small deciduous trees, or kind of I know there's a list of trees there, but what are you thinking there? Because they're very close together. So I'm just trying to think what they are.
They're a combination of deciduous trees and ornamental trees. And the idea is we want them to overlap. We want them to get that thick canopy over time to create that nice buffer between the houses and Wainwright. But you're right. They're canopy trees. They're going to be 2-3 inches at caliper at time of planting. Some of the ornamental ones will be smaller, 1 to 2 inches at time of planting.
Okay.
But that's something we can look at. We can look at keeping the existing sidewalk.
I just wanted to say that one of my concerns has always been exactly what we're talking about right now, is because it is a departure from the rest of the neighborhood. So getting the maximum realistic canopy between the street and the houses, more consistent with the rest of the neighborhoods where the houses aren't opening to the street, is important. So getting that right there, the maximum realistic canopy there is very important in my estimation. Right there on Wainwright. Because where we've done this elsewhere, and which I really do not like, we were not successful in that. So it is a very important part of the design.
Yeah, I agree, Bruce. Does anyone else have anything about the trees? The only thing I saw, did you guys provide how many trees you were going to have to remove as a part of this? Did I miss that?
We did not provide a number. We provided a square footage. So we tend to look at these things in terms of canopy. The number to be removed is relatively low because most of the trees are mature and creating a relatively large canopy. So we're proposing to remove a little over 30,000 square feet of existing tree canopy within our development footprint.
Like, I guess, did any of that mature canopy, like since you dropped the setback, since we dropped more into the site, like on that main corner of Wainwright and Vantage Hill, were any of those main mature trees able to remain there, or are those all going to have to come out as part of this development?
We looked at that, and unfortunately, we think they're going to have to come out, and the reason is because it's surprising. It was surprising to me when we started studying the elevations how low the existing grade is there. The existing grade there is, I'm going from memory, don't quote me on this, but it's roughly 8 feet or more in some places lower than Wainwright.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And so that's kind of a tricky area to deal with, but unfortunately we were not able to save trees in that area.
Okay. Anyone else have anything else with the trees?
Right now.
Sorry, Karen, what'd you say?
No, I don't, not right now.
Okay.
I'm still,
Yeah.
so really all we have on Vantage Hill is an 8-foot strip right along the curb for the trees that are shown.
That's right. Those trees will be planted in an 8-foot strip, and then there's another 5 or so feet from the behind the walk to the proposed houses.
So they need to be not very large trees.
8 feet is actually a pretty significant area. It's the planting width that the county recommends for trees, and then in some other more urban areas, we see landscape strips that are 5, 6 feet wide in some places. So we're pretty comfortable with an 8-foot landscape strip. That's going to be a fair amount of room for these trees to establish and be healthy over time.
Well, wouldn't they not be smaller trees? I mean, it's not going to be like the largest canopy trees. It's going to be maybe something that's more like a understory tree.
Not necessarily. I mean, the size of trees really can vary based on the condition and how long they've been there. But are these going to be 80 feet tall, 30 inches around? No, but I think they're, my expectation is that when they reach maturity or something close to maturity in 5 to 10 years, they're going to be substantial trees that will really help to contribute to what we really like around this neighborhood with all the trees.
Well,
you're thinking maybe like a dogwood type.
30-foot trees are substantial. So
I mean,
I don't think that they need to be the largest canopy trees. I just was curious. Okay.
Right. And Michael, I think you touched on like, what would an example be? Would it be like a dogwood? We think it's going to be a little more than that. We're proposing some oaks and maples and things like that. So these are going to be substantial trees. Not that I don't like dogwoods, but I think these trees will get pretty sizable over time.
Gotcha. Okay. Did you guys have any other parts of your presentation you wanted to jump over to, or is that the last slide for today?
That's our final slide, so we turn it over to you for comments and discussion.
So you guys weren't able to do an updated rendering of kind of what that new kind of recessed 6 foot to 4 feet depth did to the surrounding area, or was there something and I just didn't see it?
By rendering, if you mean like a 3D clay that I presented to you at the work session, no,
yeah.
We didn't update. Sorry?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about.
Yeah, no, we didn't update the clay rendering. We're honestly looking for feedback from you guys on these changes before we went into architectural detail, and that's what we would present to you during when we were really talking about the architecture and what the buildings look like.
Okay, well, if that concludes your presentation, then we have some affected parties that I need to get to, so I don't forget about them. I know they've been patient. So I'm pulling up the list now. So there was a list given to Lisa with staff. If there's anybody else that wants to be added to the list, just raise your hand. And hopefully staff will see you and kind of add you on there. I have 7 names. I'll go through these. Just a friendly reminder, you have 3 minutes to talk. Once your 3 minutes is up, staff will mute you. So it's not me muting you, but you will be muted just so we can keep this going. So first I have on the list is Graham. Graham, are you there?
I am. Can you hear me?
All right. Yep. Hey, Graham. All right. Your 3 minutes will start right now.
Thank you. I guess I would say I think everybody remembers I've been fairly opposed to this proposal from the beginning. And while I appreciate a lot of the changes, I haven't come so far as to think it's appropriate at this point. I heard comments about the pool and that it's, be better than the pool, and it's certainly be better than having a dilapidated pool, but almost anything would be. I don't think that alone makes it an appropriate design. Certainly the delayed capital improvements issue that Bandage Hill is facing is a good reason to want to do something like this, but that too doesn't make it an appropriate design. And I appreciate all the changes that the design team has made to this point. And it certainly is better than what we have seen before. But again, better doesn't mean the best or appropriate for this situation. Sorry, I lost my note card here. I guess the last time at the working session, somebody on the board had challenged me to explain why I was so opposed to the houses facing out up to the streets. And I think simply put, to me, this whole development is really the antithesis of what most of our Reston design has been really throughout the history of the community, both here at Wainwright Drive, but also more broadly in Reston. I don't know which project Bruce was referring to about where we've done this type of thing. The ones that I can think of, I would also agree, are not successful. They're not the types of development that I think are appropriate for this type of community. I'm thinking of Sunrise Valley Drive, for example. There are numerous instances there where we've allowed, and I say we because I was on the design review board for many, many years, along the International Center. Granted, those buildings are much taller, but that whole relationship of the housing fronts right up onto the street, to me, are wholly inappropriate for this particular site. It would be a precedent unlike anything else in this community. Also, the neighborhood designs here are all inward facing. They all have community spaces in them. This feels like there will be nothing left to create a community out of these houses. These will be individual units who drive out separately, who walk out their front doors separately. There's no communal meeting space, no central plaza. And these are qualities of the neighborhoods that every single one of the clusters around here share. And I think this type of development in this type of
Oh, sorry, Graham, your 3 minutes were up and I was on mute myself. So we will move on to Damian D'Antonio.
Thanks, Michael. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
So I would echo, very much what Graham said as another resident of Wainwright Cluster, which is directly across the street from the proposed redevelopment. While I appreciate a lot of the changes that have been made, and I think they're getting something that's more agreeable to most of us, I still think they're it still creates largely a inappropriate and kind of design that really doesn't fit within the rest of Wainwright and really within, I think, the larger kind of Lake Ann area of Reston. The lacking of the community spaces, the houses facing out towards the street. It largely still feels like to me that we're trying to cram more units onto that space than the space will really fit, just to be able to make the kind of the dollars work out. Where significantly less units, inward facing with some, community green space would fit much better into the community. That doesn't work out financially. So I think that kind of has, largely been dismissed in favor of the denser units, with garages, and the kind of the rear load that I think we see more common in some of the kind of higher density, newer developments being put in other parts of Reston. So, I just still, while I appreciate the changes, I would, kind of just urge the DRB to kind of, consider and push back on, making this, much more better aligned with the designs and, in and around Wainwright Drive and this area of Reston.
Great, thank you, Damien. Next up is Peter Drennen. Peter Drennen.
Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yep, Peter, your 3 minutes start now.
Thank you. And you have my written comments, so I won't belabor those points again. I would like to say that I agree with what both Graham and Damien have said. However, to be more constructive, I also applaud the work that's been done so far at regrading and certainly changing that that first entrance. If I could draw your attention to the site plan B for a minute. One of the things you'll see about this as you're bringing it up is that the way that the buildings on the left relate to Vantage Hill, you'll see the stoop and the sidewalk. That's the 5 foot plus the 8 foot going down to the roadway. And just hold that thought for a second. On the backside of that same site cut, you see that there's a small, perhaps 5 foot section, and looks like a retaining wall. And we were told there's no retaining walls here. So, and that's right where the detention device is. So that part seems unresolved. But if you will, go back to that first, how the house relates to the street, and then compare that, if you will, to site to the section AA, which I think is on the previous page. And you'll see that the building on the left of the two, looking at the original grade, and you see it does drop down about 8 feet in some places. They did lower the elevation, the grading plan, from about 3 feet. However, this is not realistic in the sense that the way that the stoop relates to the building, if this is in fact the front of the building, is on the other plan, it's about a foot above the ceiling line that you see there. And if you look at their proposed grade, you see it drains towards the building. Clearly, this is conceptual and a lot of things need to be worked out. My point, and perhaps to the board's concern about the grading and the existing trees, I believe that a second look would be in order if we regraded the proposed plan draining away from the house. That would actually give us 4, 5, 6, or even 7 feet below the sidewalk along Wainwright Drive.
Oh, did you guys meet Peter? Okay, I still had that he has some time left. I think he was basically saying there's some room to maybe regrade the other way to create some more space there in Wainwright. All right, hold on, let me bring back up my list. Next up, I have Linda Morley. Linda?
Yep, I'm here.
Linda, all right, you have 3 minutes starting now.
Okay. I'm here to speak in favor of the Vantage Hill pool property sale and development. With the DRB's suggestions, I think the developer has made many improvements, and I do see, I think each time it gets a lot better, and I think it's looking really great. The current plan will be a beautiful community that will replace the unsightly pool area. Both the new houses and the demo of the dilapidated pool will be pluses for the neighborhood. I think these factors alone warrant approval from the board. Add to that the benefit to the Vantage Hill community, and it seems like a good plan to me. Some have criticized the Vantage Hill community for supposed mismanagement, but it's not mismanagement that brings an aging community to need significant infrastructure improvements. Any community of people living in affordable housing with little disposable income would find our situation challenging. But as mentioned previously, our finances are not the concern of the DRB. Indeed, the DRB is responsible for reviewing proposed external changes in the vesting community. This proposal will rejuvenate an area by replacing rundown, abandoned pool structures with beautiful houses. At the same time, it will help a neighboring community maintain its property, including beautiful outdoor areas. To me, this seems like a win for the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Next up, we have Parker Gallagher.
Good evening, Chair Wood and members of the Design Review Board. I'm Parker Gallagher. I live in Vantage Hill, 11625. This is my spouse, Daniel Velez. and we want to thank you for the opportunity to speak with you tonight. Our living room balcony looks directly at the pool on the west side. When the new development is built, we will be looking at it every day. It may seem somewhat odd, given that we'll be looking at it every day, that we are in support of this project. But why do we support this? Most of the time, you're being asked by a developer to support a project. Rarely, if ever, are these corporate developers local Reston residents. In each of those cases, the developer has one goal in mind: to maximize their profits. That one goal is to build as much as they can, cash out, and walk away with those profits. Vantage Hill is not that. We are your neighbors. We are 152 dues-paying members of the Reston Association facing a significant infrastructure failures without the resources to solve them. We're 152 plus residents whom, after much discussion, many ideas, and debate, overwhelmingly voted to proceed with this. Why do we support this? Many of our neighbors are retired on fixed incomes. They've lived here for decades, and they cannot afford the kinds of assessments that we are facing. We support this to support them. Vantage Hill is one of the 3 more affordable complexes in Reston. We think it's the nicest, which is why we bought here. The proceeds that come to Vantage Hill will stay in Vantage Hill for us to replace our aging infrastructure and to keep our community whole. So we support it. So it's right because it's right for Vantage Hill and for our fellow owners. We're trying to balance our substantial financial needs with something relatively modest that incorporates your input into the design process so that it works as much as it can. I will have to look at it every day. And I agree with the Craftmark concept townhouse design. It fits well into the existing environment and will be an attractive addition. And thanks to lessons learned, it will not be Vantage Hill mansard roofs, certainly an improvement. So I ask for your support of your neighbors who are trying to solve a complex problem and doing it with the best of intentions. I ask for your support of your Reston Association member neighbors who are motivated not by maximizing profiteering, but preserving what we have.
Great, thank you, Parker. 3 minutes is up. Moving on to Konstantin Stomatov.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead.
I thank you for the opportunity to voice my opinion and concern, actually. I echo Graham and Damian, and I'm facing the southern part of the Unit 8 and Unit 9, I believe, right next to the green tail. So I'll be looking at it every day. My first concern is noise. Currently, I'm hearing the birds. I put my mic last time. It was a nice warm evening, and you can hear the birds. So the birds will be gone with the new air conditioning and so much housing. So now my lifestyle will be changed. So that's why I'm affected part. Even you can hear my voice. I'm so much affected. Even I cannot even speak when it's about this. When I bought this house, I moved to Reston for the community, for the green space, for the landscape, for the community, for the quietness and the lifestyle. Now we are proposing to change our community, our landscape, to build more houses. Why are we not building more trees, more landscape, and more open spaces, which is Reston about? There are so many buildings in the Reston town center. Even here on the corner next to the gas station, they're building new buildings. So Reston will turn into some housing units instead of the green spaces. So again, our vision for Reston, is it something with more housing and more crowded area, more noise and more lighting pollution, or Reston historic town to be preserved as the Reston founder built it, Robin Simpson? And again, it's about plan community, not just, okay, we cannot support some building. We're setting a precedent. Every other community that goes out financially and starts selling land and building housing or any other buildings. So again, I appreciate that we're considering that's our way democracy. Everybody can voice their opinion, and the builders made the effort to improve it. But again, the main drive is to make money and to build more housing, is not to preserve the community and to make it more beautiful. So that's the only concern. And again, thank you for the opportunity to voice my opinion.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next up I have is Cassandra. I can't read it. Aglum? Cassandra Aglum?
It's Anglum. So I
Anglum.
will start my timer. Yeah, because a couple people actually got shut off. So I'm going to set my timer to make sure that I'm within this. And so I turned on my camera just in case y'all want to, so we know where I'm going. So I'm going to start. So my name's Cassandra. I do live at Vantage Hill. And I think, Michael, you've said a couple times that you live in Colson Cluster. I'm not quite sure if that's correct. I get the communities correct. So this is my third meeting that I've been to about the property development. I've heard a couple things that I just didn't quite follow. The look of Ruston, the front doors, and what that really means, you know, the street and the front doors, and the non-use of relax. So I took the time to walk roughly 1.5 miles every possible direction on all the trails and just look at the community in a whole. And the only thing that I really concluded was that the common element in the community is the Ruston brown paint color and the paint schemes, and then the brick colors. There's 2 brick colors. Otherwise, the structure and everything is quite different of all the homes. If you go in and you actually take the time to look at that. So if we stick to Wainwright, there's roughly 7 homes in that community. 2 of which I know for sure are on, they have their own air conditioning, including Mediterranean. So Michael, if you look over there, they have they're not on RELAC. And then the community on the other side of the church, Episcopal, they have their units sitting in the background. And if you walk by in the summer, it's not loud. I mean, that's on the other side of the Wainwright cluster. So just want to put that out there. And then as far as the appearance and the trees are coming down in Ruston. There's a tree across from Lake Ann Elementary School that's been down. It landed on a car. It hasn't been removed. The tree over on the corner, right over by, you know, the 2 communities, that tree came down right around Halloween. On the inside, it was rotting out. So it definitely needed to come down. They cleaned that up quite quickly. When you look at the homes around here, just so the 3 communities around here, I've got the ones that face the pool. The one on the end looks abandoned. It has trees that come across the street in the spring, and they're very late to clean it up. The second house, when you look at the back of it, it has a stand-up paddleboard. It just has some junk back there. When you go into Mediterranean, it has cars that have license plates that have dates of 2011. Or if you look in Colson Cluster, you look at their back patios, they're pretty clean, but you look on the inside and they've got stuff. All you can see is stuff. So I just implore you, look at this development with the front doors. People take care of their front patios. They decorate, they put Halloween, they put Christmas, they put pumpkins, they put Hanukkah, whatever. It's just an appeasing, pretty look. So I was trying to fit everything in my thoughts in my 3 minutes. So thank you.
Great, thanks, Cassandra. Did anybody else register as an affected party that's on that would want to speak?
I haven't seen anything in chat that anybody else would like to.
Okay.
I don't see anyone's hands up.
I know Larry had some concerns about stormwater and stuff. Did he have anything that he wanted to add to this, or is he happy with what was presented?
I think he's okay.
Okay.
Oh, I have someone here who'd like to talk. Lee. Okay.
All right, Lee DeCola.
Yeah.
Hear me.
Hey, Lee.
I've unmuted myself. I've got my microphone. Can you hear me?
Yep, we can hear you, sir.
Okay. I'd like to I just had a couple of questions about hydrography, and let's go to page 15 in the presentation. So my first question is just, does it make sense just to look at 1, 2, and 10-year storm events rather than say 20, 40, 100 years? And certainly we're noticing that what used to be a 10-year storm event sometimes occurs every year. So that would be one issue. Also, as a data graphics expert, I think it's difficult to read those graphs because the y-axis on each of them is different. If they were all the same, we could more easily compare the events. On the next page, I'm sorry, the previous page, 14. So if I'm correct, the data on the left and right at the middle bottom refer to 48,000 square feet of impervious surface now and 59,000 square feet of impervious surface with the plan. So that's roughly an increase in 23% of impervious surface, which seems like a significant amount. And I just wondered if the question of a rain garden had been considered for that space, given the fact that it's something of a rain garden right now. That's all.
Thank you, Lee. Aaron, did you have any answers? Is that our last person, Lisa? Lisa, are you there?
Yes,
Sorry. Yes, that's it. That's all I have.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Aaron, are you still on?
I am.
Could you kind of address kind of those questions that specific affected party had?
Sure. I wrote down a few of these, so hopefully you'll help me if I forget any. I think one of the questions was, why were we evaluating the 1, 2, and the 10-year frequency storms? The answer to that is what we are obligated by the county to do. That's sort of industry standard in terms of the type of storms that we evaluate. What we will also evaluate as we move forward is a 100-year frequency storm. That is more an evaluation centered around making sure that the development is safe from flooding, not necessarily a quantitative stormwater analysis. But with that said, when we achieve a significant reduction in the 1 year and 10% reduction in the 2 and the 10, we would expect reductions in most sort of standard storms that you would look at. And so if a need arises for us to evaluate different frequency storms, we certainly can, but 1, 2, and 10, and then the 100-year storm are the storms that we typically evaluate, which is sort of industry standard, quote unquote. There was also a discussion of the change in impervious area, 11,000 square feet. That's correct. It goes from 48 to 59. I touched on that. When we look at the 11,000 square foot increase over the site area, which our limits of disturbance is roughly 94,900 square feet, that's where I came up with that 11.6% increase. Have rain gardens been considered? Yes, they have been. At this point, we may be encouraged to look at additional solutions as we go through the entitlement process with staff. But right now, what we've done is tried to value tree preservation and usable open space over those types of facilities. We like rain gardens. We use them a lot. They're effective. But we felt that by using below grade facilities, we could really shrink down, so to speak, the footprint of our development, which allows us to save more trees. And so that was the kind of driver that was the driver there.
Okay.
I think that's it.
I think you addressed everything.
Okay.
I had those kind of same questions on some of that stuff. So I think it was good to just kind of clarify some things there. So from a board standpoint, I want to kind of go around and see if anyone has any questions, comments about the proposal, in addition to anything that we maybe have already asked.
Michael,
So,
Michael,
yeah.
I'm sorry to
Yeah.
interrupt you. Can Larry talk for a moment?
Yeah, is he? I tried to give him his chance.
I know.
I'm just kidding. I know, I'm just kidding, Larry. Yeah, Larry, go ahead. I know you had some questions during the work session, so I wanted to make sure that Reston Association overall has reviewed this and kind of if you had any additional questions.
Now, I think Lee DeCola, who spoke a couple minutes ago, I think the notion of looking at a higher storm event, yeah, I mean, typically the developers come in, they do what's, the minimum required to meet the county regulations, the 1, 2, and the 10, and, and they acknowledge maybe they look at the 100, even go to the 25 or something. But my main comment was on and you brought this up earlier, Michael, was the additional parking spaces that are going to be created on kind of the older Vantage Hill property, sort of the infill parking. I wonder if they might not be able to do some pervious surface treatment there as part of that to do some additional stormwater, because a lot, as noted by the engineer, a lot of that stormwater is not going to be treated. It's going to be, curb and gutter otherwise into the existing channels. So looking at some innovative treatment options there, both for quantity and quality, I think would be in order. That's it.
Okay. And when you're saying pervious for the curb and gutter there, are you talking about the actual kind of creating more parking? If parking spaces are created in front of these, let's say units 19 through 25 or something on Vantage Hill there, actually creating a pervious strip of pavement or some sort of parking there, is what you're saying? Or
a lot of it has to do with the soil beneath and what the capacity is. But, you think about what they did at Terracet School, that whole front parking lot, there's lots of different methods to do pervious treatment so that you're actually, capturing and treating the stormwater on site, right there in the parking spots. They did it at South Lakes High School as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. It could be even something they could look at for even the driveways or for all the concrete, pavements. I mean, there's a lot of concrete pavement going in here as well, just from a sidewalk standpoint. I don't know. Like we said, there might be a way that they can work that into.
Looking at additional low impact development techniques, particularly on the stormwater front, would be strongly encouraged.
Okay.
Can I ask Larry a question?
Yep.
Larry, how does the maintenance work these days for pervious paving?
Well, it's up to the owner, quite frankly. They do have to be maintained. It depends on the treatment you use, what the installation is.
Mm-hmm.
They have to be cleaned out periodically to maintain their optimum function. But we don't have any pervious pavement. We have a small amount actually at Dogwood Pool. We did the redevelopment there, but we also have a storm scepter box in that parking lot as well, and that requires maintenance, and that will be the responsibility of the cluster here. Hopefully that answers your question.
I guess I'm just wondering how. Is it something that can be reasonably handled by a cluster, or does it become a really big deal to keep it actually working?
I don't know. I don't have enough experience managing those types of facilities.
Mm-hmm.
I think the better the design up front, the better it will be for maintenance down the road.
Right.
That's often the case.
Yeah, it's a good question, Karen, because I didn't even think about that. That the cluster itself would need to maintain this detention facility. Aaron, can you speak to that? How much is involved in kind of maintenance for a detention facility such as this, where they're using a?
Sure. Basically, facilities like this, they have generally speaking, they have yearly maintenance requirements, and then larger maintenance requirements every 5 years or so, and then ultimately pieces of the system would have to be replaced. So once a year, there will be an inspection and probably some limited hand or vacuum maintenance of the system. And then every 5 years, there may be, pulling some pieces out and replacing small components. And then every, within maybe 30 to 40 years out, there's going to be larger replacement of specific components. So maintenance is always a concern, but it is, what we're proposing here is not sort of too much for a development of this scale. So this is sort of what we're proposing is sort of in line with what we see on a lot of developments like this. And then to speak to your earlier question about permeable pavement for some of the parking throughout the site, that makes sense. That comes with its own maintenance responsibilities. Again, it's, permeable pavement is a little bit higher maintenance than some other types of solutions. If you want it to function properly, it has to be flushed and actually vacuumed periodically. And so, but again, these are things that are a maintenance obligation, but I would not classify them as extraordinary or out of the ordinary.
Okay.
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Are there companies that do that?
There are, yeah. Usually manufacturers with the installation of these facilities will offer maintenance contracts. You can also shop for them.
Okay.
I would view it similar to like a maintenance program with your car dealership or something like that. There are options out there.
So it's not like you're just going to get somebody off the street to come in and
Nope.
try to do stuff.
There's a whole industry around this type of thing.
Thank you.
Okay. So what I'll do is I'll kind of go around the board and see if anyone has any comments, questions for Aaron or Robbie, and then we'll kind of go from there. Mike B, did you have anything that's kind of drummed up in the last hour or so?
I don't have anything further at this time. I think I was going to talk about the stormwater management opportunities, but Karen, you brought up some very interesting points, so I don't have anything further at this moment.
Okay. Dan, did you have anything?
I have a question for maybe the others on the board or staff, just as being new on here. So they're asking for conceptual approval, and I'm curious what that limits us to in the future. I feel like there's a number of people that have spoken who are relatively on board with this. I'm willing to support it, I think, but a number of people who obviously brought up how it's different than a lot of Reston. So if we give conceptual approval, are we then limited in the future to, really just focusing on the architecture and not any site changes, or, what's the practical effect?
That is usually how it goes, that when you give conceptual approval, it's actually about the building site. Pretty much like they have it laid out here. It's the number of units, it's the surrounding, they would come up with the landscaping plan, all the architecturals, all the color, all the details, windows, doors, etc., garage doors, things like that. But right now, you're looking at what they presented, the area they presented it in, and the grading and the water, all of that would be probably included unless you decided to exclude it.
Okay.
And then at the end, also, you would just make a list of what you would like to see next time.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I would only add that there have been some very rare exceptions to that, but that's
sure.
Yeah, I think generally it's seen as a good faith. Like it's a good faith agreement that we're saying conceptually you guys are good to go to keep spending money essentially on developing all of those expensive items that Lisa just mentioned. It just takes time and money for them to develop it all. So I think it's almost a yes, we can go back on a conceptual approval, but because it's conceptual. Things change. They may come back and say this detention center is not as big as we need, or it's not big enough for what we need, and then they have to kind of submit some things. But same with how we could come back and say we're not really we're not feeling the, I don't know, the sidewalk exactly in this location. Can we move it here, right?
Okay.
I think there is some leeway. I don't think it's, it's not ideal that we move things from the site plan perspective, but obviously things will adjust once we start looking at, are they going to have balconies on this thing? Are they going to have rooftop terraces versus balconies? Things like that may impact some of those appeal of that alleyway, kind of looking down it. Like I personally can't stand when there's all those little balconies that just stand off the back of the building and really muddy up that alleyway. Maybe there's a better way to do it. So I think those are things that might come down the line. But yeah.
So the comments I'd make, I appreciate the number of changes that the applicants have made over the course of working with us. I think that this is a significant improvement and in a lot of different features over what we started with. I do have some potential reservations about, the look of those alleyways you're talking about. I mean, it's not something that I'm generally in favor of whenever you've got those little stub driveways and maybe a bollard between them, or, something blocking the HVAC, or I don't really think that builds a ton of community. I think a lot of times, especially brand new, just doesn't look that good personally. That being said, I don't know that there's really an alternative for design on this site that wouldn't, I don't know, at least cut the number of units by a third, if not half. And then at that point, whether it's this applicant or someone in the future, I don't really know if that's feasible to make the thing pencil out and worthwhile. If you really made this more like what a lot of the people in the community have talked about, where everything is facing more inward, you're going to have to flip those things around, provide parking in the front. I guess you could still do a driveway or a garage to some degree, but while I understand where a number of the community members are coming from, I just don't know if it's absolutely feasible on this site. And considering that, I think that this is, like I said, much stronger design overall than it was before. And it's something that I am willing to consider and probably support tonight.
Okay.
That's all, Michael.
Thank you. Scott, did you have anything?
No. I think Bruce, you listed some previous concerns that I agree. Any additional comments right now?
All right, thank you. Karen, did you have anything additional?
I'm at the point where I would sort of like to know a little bit more about it. And, like the next baby step, can we get some idea of how this translates into a visual?
From like a massing standpoint.
Pardon me?
From like a massing standpoint, like kind of roughly how this alleyway looks, or kind of roughly how the view from Wainwright into Vantage Hill looks like, or something with some three-dimensional?
Just something to give me some feeling for what can you really do with this. And I'm feeling better about the drainage and the site as being more at a reasonable, instead of being up on a platform, it seems to be settling down, and eliminating the retaining walls. And so I'm just wondering, how does that translate into the next tenuous step of just getting some wild idea about what does this look like? And I don't know, I'm not sure, Dan had a question about that was relative to that, but I'm not sure if we're getting in too deep if we ask to see something more about the architecture.
Yeah, I mean, we could request some additional kind of 3D studies of what they're going to be proposing versus these two-dimensional drawings that we're having at the moment, to try to get us a better feel of this, new design that's kind of sunken in a little bit more. I'm really interested kind of in the view sheds that have been created, with these alleyways, and they may not be very noticeable because the land is set down, but on paper they look like they're noticeable because, you're looking from Wainwright onto Vantage Hill. If you're coming down the hill from Wainwright looking into these, I guess it's unit 19 and 13 kind of behind there, what does that look like as you're coming down the street? Is it, you may not even notice it, but on paper it looks like you would. So I do think having some of those, I think when we had the 3D models during the work session, it helped significantly in us being able to understand kind of what was going on a little better. But Bruce, did you have anything to add?
Yeah, and I began by saying I really don't like, the question was asked, what was I referring to? I don't like tall oaks. I think tall oaks was a situation that reminds me of this. I came in at the end of that, where we're trying to address an area that's had some problems, and we get caught up in trying to make it better and better, the solution better and better. And I acknowledge this is better than the last time I saw it, but I'm still concerned that in order to resolve one neighborhood's problem, we present a different design for the area away from the transit area. If this, in the transit area, the closer you are to the transit area, the more urban it is, the more this design is more typical. The further you go into the PRC area of Reston, the established neighborhoods, our guidelines are pretty clear that we're trying not to disrupt the established neighborhood. So I am struck that we want to do the right thing for the folks who are trying to deal with the pool. And I also want to do the right thing for everyone else that lives around them. So I would hope that maybe the point being made that if we could see more, maybe I could be more comfortable. But this is very much those tight alleyways are another thing that I didn't really understand as well until I actually saw how they look built out now in Tall Oaks. So I guess what I'm saying is I wouldn't be ready to move forward on this and on what I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. When I walked through Tall Oaks probably last 2 days ago, 3 days ago, it's like people are already parking half in their driveway, half in the road. I mean, I know the construction isn't done yet, but it just my mother-in-law lives in a development like this out in Gainesville where the driveways are 4 feet deep, 5 feet deep, and half the people park their car parallel park it in the driveway, or they park diagonal to try to get out of the fire lane, or they try to do just all these janky parking things that just turns into aesthetically a kind of a big nightmare. And then you add on to it bollards and HVAC and gas meters and all these things that there's only so much. At Tall Oaks, they said, oh, we're going to screen them, we're going to screen them, we're going to screen them. And then they came back and said, oh, we can't screen them, it's too close to the unit. And it's like, well, then we're stuck with all the units, in every single little island piece. So it's nothing, it's not saying Craftmark might not come back with something else. I just think maybe there's a way to, if the overall I like the direction we're going, I just think we need to. I still go back to where there just might be a little too many units to be able to get kind of the proper open space, community space, feeling that you're living in Reston proper here and not the TSA when you walk out your front door. It's kind of more of what I think when you think of this area it's very important. I guess I had one question for Robbie. Robbie, what is the current parking requirements for single-family housing in the county right now? Is it 2 spaces for every house? Is Robbie still unmuted?
I'm making sure he's unmuted. Go.
Yes, I was going to say, I think it depends on the zone and the housing type, but I'm going to need to refer to Aaron on what townhouses would be required in this zone.
Okay. Aaron, do you have an answer for that?
Hold on.
Sorry, I'm making it difficult.
Okay. No, he's great. Go ahead,
I'm
Aaron.
unmuted now. The county requires 2.7 spaces per unit. For
2.7.
2.7 for townhouses and 1.6 for multifamily. So this neighborhood with the condo flats and the townhouses would be a mix of 2.7 per unit and 1.6. It's a very high requirement.
Yeah, so you're getting 2 spots in the 2-car garage, and then you're getting, I guess the 0.7 is being addressed with those couple 10, 14 spots. Are you guys allowed to utilize any of the street parking along Wainwright or Vantage Hill, or no?
No, to meet your code, parking has to be off street, which is outside the public right of way. So we're meeting our requirement through garage parking. There are 1 or 2 driveways that have enough for a code compliant parking space, and then surface parking would make up the rest.
Interesting. Okay. I guess, Robbie, when you guys did look at those kind of front loading townhouses, or Aaron, I'm sure you guys kind of went back and forth about it. Is it just that you get down to only about 20 units and then you just can't make it work?
It could even be
financially.
It could even be less than that, and the units would be pushed closer to Wainwright and Vantage. And honestly, I just feel like it would be there are more cons than pros in that scenario. The design we drew out required a large retaining wall on the southeast side, and we didn't even get far enough along with it to consider where the stormwater would go, but that would eat into that space also.
Gotcha.
So I just think it would be a bottom line a death blow if we had to go that route.
Yeah, I guess I was just trying to knock back and forth the idea about, is it possible to do how there's a lot of the clusters around there do carports and have, then, all the houses don't need to be accessible from a road where it kind of starts creating that more community space, which is what I think a lot of people are kind of driving. They're driving towards to kind of make this development very unique and not look like it's out of place when it's built. And make it more fit into the community rather than be completely noticeable as brand new. Does anybody have any other comments, questions for Aaron or Robbie? Does anybody want to make a motion?
I would like to add one more thing. During this conversation, a lot more attention was paid to the alleys, which we hadn't really talked about before. There are things we can do to the alleys to soften and so it doesn't create this utilitarian feel with just HVAC units and meters. We can narrow the driveways and create as much space between the driveways as possible. We can narrow the driveways to 15 feet in width and still have enough room to get 2 cars in the garage, and then pushing them to one side of the townhome and mirroring that as we stagger throughout the unit can create wider, islands between the driveways that we might have opportunity to soften with, something vegetative, depending on the size. Maybe it's a small tree or plants or something. But adding something vegetative to the alleys, I think would go a long way in softening their appearance. The other thing that's kind of in that same vein is using, and somebody mentioned this, a paver. Portions of those alleys, whether they're permeable or not, they can still provide an aesthetic relief from all that hardscape back there. So if we did those for the driveways, it could break it up. So, we'd, hopefully we'll get conceptually approved here and we can come to you in the next iteration with, along with architecture, with more details on how we can address the alley.
Okay. I just think a couple of the board members are making the statement that, it seems like they maybe want a little bit more. I mean, how much of an ask is it to bring, let's say we defer the decision to next month and you guys bring back 3D modeling and update the site plan to kind of address those alleyways a little bit, with a little bit more detail. Do you think that's something you could kind of address over the next, 2 weeks and then get it back into staff?
If that's what the board decides, we'll understand and we'll have to discuss how to proceed afterwards. We were planning, on hopefully, agreeing that conceptually the layout was okay, and then we'd bring you an abundance of material to speak to the architecture and that stuff, and that would include 3D renderings of the entire site. So, obviously we'll leave that up to the board's decision, but we're hoping to get conceptually approved to give us the confidence to go ahead and work on those additional materials.
I guess what the tricky part is that if let's say we conceptually approve, then you're gonna, conceptually, if you look at these driveways, it looks like there's 3 feet between them. So then when, you guys come back, let's say there's turnover on the board or whatever it be, who knows, if you come back in 6 months, you say, oh, well, you guys conceptually approved us. We just kept moving forward. And then we bring up all these concerns, and I don't want to kind of cause double work or a diss between you and I. I want to make sure that it's the working relationship where we're not seen. I think hopefully we're seen as helping make this design get better over time and help kind of fit into the community a little bit better. So I think that's kind of maybe all that we're. For the work session, you guys were able to provide a little bit of the clay models, and I think those helped significantly from an understanding point of massing for sure. I think the sections help, but to be able to really feel how these are going to feel with the context of the rest of the community, I think it does kind of give some value during the site plan process. But I guess we'll see how the rest of the board members feel, and we can go from there. Does anybody feel like making a motion at all?
I'll make a motion. I'd make a motion to defer a decision on conceptual approval pending additional information, perhaps modeling, with respect to, among other things, the alleyways. And I think we'd raised the question about what we had, what the plan was for the sidewalk and arrangement on Wainwright. I mean, those are two things that have come up tonight. There may be others, and I would be happy to.
Yeah, and I think that general massing could help see what that, they're showing on the floor plan or the 2D plan here, this undulation along Vantage Hill of these facades. What exactly is that? Are those just simply little boxes that are sticking off the building, or is it actually going to be a true kind of way to vary that space, and it's actually going to work along that street, versus who knows what it kind of looks like is basically my point. And so I think if we get that in 3D, it'll really kind of help us determine if the site plan is going to work. I guess the tricky thing is with a deferral, in my opinion, a deferral basically means that we're conceptually okay with it and we just want some more information. And it's not like a straight no. So I just want to make sure that's how I kind of look at a defer, because we're still asking them to keep providing work. I don't want to ask them to keep providing work, and then ultimately we vote no. You know what I mean? I want to make sure that we're fair to them as well, where if we want to make sure that this overall design is working, I mean, obviously with some caveats of what comes back, but generally to me, a deferral, you know, we're still looking for some more information, but generally, you know, it's looking okay. Is that kind of your feeling, or are you just more, you need more information before you can say yes or no?
My notion of the deferral is I don't want them to start over again. And that, so, because yes or no, if we're not going to give a yes or no deferral, saying if we have some more information, we can reach a yes or no answer. That's how I understand it. So that was the spirit of my motion.
Okay. Just checking. All right, so we have a motion. Do we have a second or any questions on the motion?
Well, you can do a second and then you can discuss further if there are other people.
Yeah. I just didn't know if anyone needed a clarification on the motion before seconding it. But does anyone want to second the motion?
I'll second.
All right, so Karen seconds. Do we have any further discussion? Does everyone understand the motion?
You're specifically asking Bruce for additional information on the sidewalk, as well as potential revisions to the site plan or additional modeling to sort of clarify what's happening to the alleyway space, correct?
Yes, and I think Michael added, and I agreed, if we could have some better sense of the arrangement of the buildings along Vantage Hill, the term you used, Michael.
Yeah, I guess just the varying setbacks, bump outs, whatever they're trying to achieve there. I don't know what it, you know, on paper it looks fine, but what does that look like in 3D? So I guess what I would say on the motion is to provide 3D shots from certain exterior angles that look at the alleyways, look at the front facades, look at view sheds as you're coming up Wainwright, coming up Midge Hill, and kind of how that all pieces it in together with this new elevation concept, because the last models we saw were when this elevation was up much higher. You know, it's dropped about 6 feet now, which is great, and I appreciate it. I think that's a great step in the right direction. I just think we need to have a little bit more 3D model, say, of what this looks like. And I'm hoping with the clay rendering, it could show kind of that alleyway with, okay, if they do propose the AC condensers, okay, you know, drop those in there and be able to show us what that's going to look like. Nobody usually likes to see that in a rendering, but that's what actually comes out in the, you know, in the final site. So I think those are kind of the additional information that I'm looking for.
Okay. Thank you for the clarification, gentlemen. I appreciate it.
All right. So we have a motion and a second. Is there any other questions, concerns?
I'll just say that it'd probably be my preference to try to do a conceptual approval subject to just having them change some things, because I agree with you, Michael. I don't want to prolong this and keep having them do a little bit more each time. You know, that being said, I'm relatively new to the community. There's a lot I love about Reston. I'm more used to this style of architecture and design from my day job, and it's not something that I'm necessarily like adamantly opposed to, but given where it sounds like the rest of the board is, this is probably the safest way to do it, so they can get a little bit more certainty before we actually take a vote, because I think they're willing to work with us on some of the things that we've mentioned tonight. So I don't know that doing it this way is all that different than the alternative.
Yeah, I would agree with you, Dan, for the record. I'm kind of in your camp on that one. So.
Yeah, my biggest problem is that, right? That this is something that you see everywhere else. And that's where I don't know if I want to necessarily defer it if I'm not, you know, if we don't, you know, I just, these rear loading townhouses, you know, it just, they pull at me every time I see them, especially with these shorter driveways. It just totally, it creates this chaos in this alleyway from a visual standpoint. And you can drive, you know, over to Tall Oaks and everyone can go look at it. You know, it's already happening there, and the development's only 30% built. So that just would be my only comment on it.
And I understand that, and like I said earlier, I mean, I don't love them either. My concern is that it seems like there may be, and I know we don't have the full board with us tonight, but if there are enough members that already feel that way and no amount of changing is going to change their feelings on that, then I'd prefer to give that a little more upfront than prolong it. But we're not going to know until we get some more design and drawings. So.
No, yeah, I completely agree, and I think that's I think it all depends on how people want to vote tonight, and we'll kind of see a little bit more on where everyone stands. So we have a motion and a second. So we're going to take a vote.
And could somebody restate the motion, please?
Yeah. So my understanding of the motion is a motion to deferral the conceptual approval pending additional required documents of 3D modeling of the overall site, the potential alleyways, the view sheds from the main arteries, and also this I think will address any of those setback concerns we have, any of the front facade concerns we have can all be addressed in some 3D modeling with those different view shed shots that they could do.
Okay. Thanks.
All right. So we're going to take a vote. So what I'll do is I'll take a roll call vote, just to keep it easy. So Mike B, do you vote yay or nay or abstention?
Yay.
Was that a yay?
Yay. Yes.
Yes. Maybe I should just say yes or no.
There you go. Probably easier.
Dan, yes, no, or abstention?
Yes.
Yes. Scott, yes, no, or abstention?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Karen, yes or no? Or
Yeah.
abstention? All right. Bruce, yes or no?
Yes.
Okay. And I'm going to vote nay. I'm going to vote no. So motion passes of a deferral 5-1. Yeah. So thank you guys. Thank you, Robbie. Thank you, Aaron. Hopefully we can come to a resolution next time.
Thank you.
All right. So DRB we're going to move into an executive session for legal discussion before this next application. So I believe staff is going to put everyone else in mute, and then we're going to move into a legal session to talk with our counsel before we get to this next final application.
Okay. Please join. Yes, I'm trying to assign at this point. Let's see.
All right, sorry, folks, a little misunderstanding there. So I move that the design review board enter executive session.
All right, we're going to try this one more time. Hold on.
There needs to be a second to that motion.
Second.
We have a motion. Do we have a second? We do have a second. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. All right, sorry, guys. We'll be right back.
And Jane, Tony needs to be made a co-host so that he can join.
Got it. Let's see.
And Karen, I need you to accept going into the breakout session. There should have been a little pop-up on your screen.
Oh, yes. And I'm sorry.
Just hit join.
Okay.
Is that everyone? All right, I'm gonna join Jane.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. We are back. Tony, our counsel, is going to say some words. I think he is unmuted.
Mr. Chair, I believe I heard Mr. Ramos make a motion that the members of the DRB certify that only those matters appropriate for executive session involving consultation with legal counsel were heard or discussed in executive session. Was there a second?
I will second that.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.
All right, thank you. All right, so now we're moving on with our agenda to application H, which is for 11903 Triple Crown Road. Mr. McGurk, basically, we all know the background of this. There was an appeal. We granted the appeal. We are, as the DRB, are reviewing this as de novo, I believe was the term I was told, which means we're reviewing it from the beginning. So you have the floor to present. We'll let you present, and then we will hear from the affected parties after you present, and then the DRB will weigh in. So if you could go ahead and present your application, kind of all the components that are involved, and then we can hear from the affected parties. Okay. Staff, if you could unmute Mr. McGurk.
Yes.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay.
There we are.
Yes,
Hey,
sir.
hello, sir. Thank you for being patient.
Oh.
All right. So if you could present your application, that'd be great.
Great, thank you. If we can go to page 32, I've just got a short statement to make, and I'll reference some pictures and diagrams as we go, if that's okay. So thank you for the opportunity to review our applications for modifications to our deck. As you can see from our drawings and pictures, we've extended the west side of our deck from the master bedroom exterior wall. We removed the old railing and it's replacing it with a stainless steel cabling and wood railing similar to other decks in Reston. We added stairs on the south side of the deck of the house, and we replaced the decking and stained the beams and posts in a Cape Cod gray. Our modifications create an airy and open design that meets the requirements for elevated desk and blends well with our house and the surrounding houses in our neighborhood in Reston. On August 25th, the board asked us to restudy and resubmit our application. We engaged a certified architect to assess the feasibility of stairs on the west side of the deck and whether or not we were compliant with DRB guidelines. We established that stairs on the west side of the deck and house are not feasible, and that our proposed design did incorporate the DRB guidelines for an elevated deck. Excuse me. Could you go to page 37, please? Thank you. Our resubmitted application on October 2nd proposed a staircase design and location that makes the most architectural sense. Constructing the stairs on the south side of the deck and house, as opposed to the location of the 1985 and 88 application, allows for the most direct access to the backyard from the first floor living space. It terminates in the center of the rear yard, away from and obscured from adjoining neighbors, and protects the mature trees that project up through the deck floor. Could you please go to page 40? Thank you. Just a little bit more up. Thank you. Our application is substantially different than applications in 1985 and 88, and there are substantially changed issues, facts, and circumstances. Rather than rehashing the details and countering the plat's voluminous writings, factual misrepresentations, and photographs, I'd rather spend the time answering the questions of the DRB members. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak and present our application.
Thank you, Mr. McGurk. Can I ask you one question about this last slide that we're looking at right now before we get to the affected parties? So this last slide was a picture from 1985 to 1988. This, just so we're clear, this is the east side of the property, correct, that we're looking at?
Correct.
And those were the stairs that were in question from all the decisions that we've seen that were incorrectly built in the wrong location back in 1985.
Correct. And this is actually a picture from the DRB files for this property.
Okay.
And as you can see, the stairs are on the actually terminating to the north. This is a view looking to the west. And then the picture above that is actually how it looks currently.
And so when you bought the house, those stairs did not exist there.
Correct.
And so you didn't even know about them or anything like that?
No, I didn't. I didn't know until actually we got the file.
Gotcha. Okay. Just wanted to clarify that. All right. So we have some affected parties. I was not sent a list, I don't think, for this. Staff, do you have the list that you're going to go through?
Yes, we'll start with Belinda Collins.
All right, just a reminder, you guys have 3 minutes, and staff will mute you if you go over it. So.
Okay.
Belinda, are you there?
Yes, can you hear me? And I have my husband with me. We would like to express our support for the redesign that Wayne and Jenny McGurk have placed on their house. We believe it is simple and elegant. It picks up the lines of the house and the coloring. It is truly elegant. Placing the stairs on the south side keeps them from being a highly visible element to the 6 parties who use this pipe stem on a regular basis to go up and down. It's essentially our private driveway. They make a second means of egress from the house, and they're a beautiful lead into the newly landscaped backyard. We are very much opposed to moving the stairs to the west side of the deck. First of all, they will extend beyond the deck into above that rocky area there. In addition, however, that rocky area is a drainage control area that is shooting the water down through the McGurk's backyard into our yard beyond all the work we've had done to control our excessive water things. If the stairs come off this west side, all of this water drainage is going to have to be moved. And the result is going to be, and you can look at my 2 slides, we already have a lot of water coming into our yard. We do not need any more water. And finally, we just support all the work that the McGurks have done to make their house a true home, one that's beautiful, that they and the neighbors can enjoy. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak.
Great, thank you. Staff, do you have who's next?
Corey Anderson. Okay.
Hi, everybody. Good evening. And thank you for giving me some time to chat. And I'll just kind of continue Belinda's notes. You know, one of the reasons we moved to this cluster was really just how well our immediate neighbors took care of their property. The McGurks in particular have made substantial improvements since they've moved in. And I think the deck very much too is representative of these improvements. I have a wide view of it, for my home office and my bedroom. And I just don't think it's your typical deck. The particular fit and finish, you know, it's so well done. I feel like it would look nice inside my property. It's well designed. They use quality materials, and I think even looking at the pictures, like the landscaping, especially on the west side facing my property, provides, I think, a level of privacy for the McGurks, and I think too for myself. And I'll defer to Belinda in terms of the concerns around the drainage, because I think those are probably fairly important. But I think just broadly, you know, these improvements that they're making to their home are undoubtedly affecting the value of my property. And I say I support the McGurk's improvements. I say really with my own interests in mind. And to that sense, I fully support the deck as is. And thank you again for your time today.
Okay,
Great, thank
David. David C.
It's David Cassio speaking.
Thank you.
Can I get a sound check?
You're fine.
Yep, we
Very
hear
good.
you. Yep.
Okay. This is David Cassio. I'm at 11913 Triple Crown. I've lived here since 2002, so this is going on 18 plus years. From my house, I have direct line of sight into the backyard from my driveway and my front door. So I can see what's going on over there. And I'll give you the bottom line up front. I'm in favor of the deck and stairs as built, and I signed a statement to that effect. I'd like to make 3 points, echoing what Belinda and Corey said. All the recent improvements to the property have been really well done, especially the deck and the stairs. The house has never looked better. The jobs have all been completed quickly, and I like what I see over there. It's my belief that as homeowners, we should be able to make improvements to our property as we desire, and all good neighbors should be accommodating and cooperative to the extent possible. My second point would be that as long as Wayne has pulled all the required county permits and passed the safety inspections, at this point, the DRB should take a very high standard for requiring any changes at this point, considering money which already been spent. My third and final point would be that I would be opposed to any changes that would affect the water drainage onto our private road. Those are the points that I wanted to make. Thank you very much.
Okay, the last affected party, Leslie Platt.
Good evening, and John Coward will be speaking on our behalf, and would be glad to answer any questions you may have. John Coward is on, so you have to unmute him.
I can speak. When is my time starting?
We can start now.
Okay, thank you. John Coward, attorney for Leslie and Marsha Platt. Good evening, members of the Design Review Board. It's been kind of a late evening, but I thank you for the opportunity to continue this hearing. In August, the Design Review Board instructed the McGurks in a decision letter to revise the deck design to relocate the deck stairs to the west side of the property. This was done for a very specific and important reason, because as the successor owners of Lot 7, they're bound by an April 1988 DRB precedent decision letter that didn't simply say that they had to find some other spot other than that what's pictured in the last page of this packet. That April 1988 decision specifically instructed that the stairs were to be located alongside and parallel to the west side of the deck, not on the south side, not on the east side. And there was never any instruction or suggestion that the stairs ought to protrude out perpendicular to the west side, as shown on the McGurk's drawing. And it appears that this is kind of something that was done that I don't know if it's intentional or not, but had the effect of confusing some of the other affected parties. Mr. McGurk has argued that the west side location is not feasible because of a drainage swale that sits on that part of the property. However, if we can flip to the photographs that show that drainage swale, you'll see that that's the picture I want to see. You can see that there is 4 feet in between the extended deck and the drainage swale. So there's adequate space to put in a set of parallel stairs in that spot without having to relocate the drainage swale. And in fact, you see how the drainage swale steers the water away from where the end of the deck would be. And the deck is now almost 15 feet long, so there's plenty of space for this to kind of hug and sit along the side of this in conformance with the DRB's prior decided decisions. Lastly, the deck, if you see the color of the deck here, the color of the deck is a kind of a very bright, almost white color, and we'd ask that it be made darker to match the house. Thank you.
Well, very well.
Great, thank you. Staff, is that all the affected parties?
Yes, that's it.
Great. All right. I would like to go around the room and see if anyone has any questions for the applicant. So Mike B, do you have any questions?
Don't, sir. I think we've looked at this one before. I think we know what the application entails at this point. Thank you.
Okay. Dan, did you have anything?
No questions.
Okay. Scott?
No, thank you.
Karen? Karen, you still there? Oh, Karen's muted. Can we get her unmuted real quick?
She's a co-host. She can unmute herself.
Hey, Karen, you just hit that red mic in your video feed. There you go.
You can hear me
All
now.
right, Karen, yep, we can hear you now. Karen, do you have anything?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Bruce? Bruce, you there? Where are you? Did we lose Bruce?
Is that him calling in? I don't even see him.
I don't know. Okay.
Okay.
Do we still have 5? Yeah, we still have 5. Okay. I guess the only questions I have, so I'm viewing this deck. So what additions have added to the existing deck? I want to make sure clear we know if this deck is a new proposal or kind of an extension of the old, or kind of what's going on. So Mr. McGurk, what exactly on this slide here? So it looks like originally there was going to be a cantilevered out, but you actually had to remove the posts and move them forward to make maybe more room for maybe that hot tub or something, and actually extend the deck out, correct?
No, actually we reduced from the initial proposal, we reduced the deck considerably. I think it was.
But if you're looking at this graphic that I'm looking at, it says those posts are new. Those two on the left by the hot tub.
Originally 3 posts, one to the left of the hot tub, one in the to the right of the hot tub, and then one back basically behind that existing post, where it says existing post and there's 2 arrows. It's the arrows to the left, and so we actually if you look at there's actually was an existing double beam located between that existing post over to the right towards the trees. You kind of see it there. So what we ended up doing was cantilevered it we moved it out and took advantage of the 2 existing posts that were there with the double beam that supports the point of the deck. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so we incorporated that into it. And we actually, in the original design, there were 10 posts. We actually only installed 4 new posts. And we eliminated the 2 posts, basically. So there was a 60% reduction in post. In addition, what we did was when we were looking at the stairs, we were concerned about interfering with those mature trees. And we did some pilot holes, and we had a mid-rise landing in the stairs. And when we did the pilot holes, we found that we were hitting major roots. So we reworked the step design to eliminate the mid-rise landing. And we actually just put in 2 new posts, and we engineered it so that the post that supports the stairs closest to the deck is actually attached to the deck and doesn't go in the ground. So what we tried to do, 2 things. We reduced the bulk, 3 things. We reduced the length of the extension, and we reduced the mid-rise landing in order to not interfere with the trees, the tree roots, because those are so close to the house and so tall that we didn't want to disrupt them at all in case of any, in case they fell over, basically.
Gotcha. Okay. And so you didn't modify any bit of the deck on the east side.
Correct.
Towards, you didn't modify any part of that, extend it out farther or anything like that?
No, with the exception of the railing and the new decking boards.
Okay. And then final question. So the color Cape Cod gray, that is painted. I know the pictures I have are still, kind of in progress photos. Is the railing is going to be painted that Cape Cod gray as well? Right now it's just shown as a pressure treated board on the top rail, or is that going to be something different?
Well, what we originally had planned to do was stain the entire deck that color, but when we stained it, it's unfortunately the color in the pictures and any pictures, it is gray. It contrasts with the, it's not white. It's a darker color gray. Than it's not as dark as the house. But when we saw the deck like this, it said, well, we'll let the decking, the decking stairs and the railing be a neutral just let it kind of weather and maybe and stain it clear. Because it
Okay.
offers a nice contrast, and it helps provide it as being kind of open and airy and not as and the word, I'm lost for the word, as bulky as it would be if it was painted all a single color.
Okay. And because I guess your house doesn't have any trim existing. It's just the siding goes right up to the windows, correct? So there's you only have one house color.
Yeah, that trim around the windows is painted white.
And then your fascia board and your soffit boards and everything up behind the gutters, that's all white as well, from what I can tell.
Fascia boards, I believe, are white, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
And so you're introducing this other, okay. And so this color is the lighter gray, the lighter tone of your siding color.
Correct.
Okay. All right. I just wanted to clarify those things. Okay. So did Bruce jump back on while I was talking? No? Okay.
No, I'm sorry. I left a message with him.
Okay.
He dropped off. Okay.
So those are the only questions I have. I mean, I think the tricky thing about the affected party here is, there was a deck that was proposed on the original house when it was built back in the 80s. And our design decision came down to kind of say, let's put the stairs on the other side because they saw them as an obtrusion of privacy or whatever it may be. I think these new stairs, in my opinion, don't intrude on the next door neighbor at all. If anything, you're walking away from the neighbor. So kind of my thought is, yeah, they're not in line with our original decision, but this is a whole new deck proposal that's being proposed. It's not just a refurbishment of the existing deck. There was post move, there's new railing done, all new decking boards, the size is enlarging. So I'm kind of viewing it as a whole new application. With that said, if nobody else had any other comments, does anybody have a motion that they would like to make?
So I move that we approve the deck as it is now and the stairs.
And the railing and all the paint color and everything. So you just move to approve the application as is.
Right.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
This is Dan. I'll second that.
We have a second from Dan. All right, so is there any further discussion?
I'll just note that I agree with what you'd said, Michael, that this appears to be a substantially new application that we have the authority to look at with fresh eyes. And I agree that I don't see any issues with this that present any issues that we wouldn't face with any other decks of the ones that come through.
Okay. So we have any other further discussion? All right. If not, I'm going to take a vote. So I'll just go around and get a roll call just to keep it easy. Mike B, yes or no, or abstention?
Yes.
We have a yes. Dan, yes or no, or abstention?
Yes.
Scott, yes or no, or abstention?
Yes.
Karen, yes or no, or abstention?
Yes.
Bruce isn't on, so I guess he's an abstention. And then I'll vote yes as well, making the motion pass, and the application is approved. All right.
For the record, Michael, Bruce will not, Bruce's vote will not count at all. He's not present.
Okay.
So it will be those who are
So
here.
Bruce is not present. Okay. All right. So moving on to our other agenda items, we have me with Reston Town Center North update. So just from it was Bruce, Karen and I were out did a walkthrough session with Supervisor Alcorn out at the site, and it was helpful. We went over kind of the most recent conceptual approval that they received from the Design Review Board about a year ago. There was a couple questions on conceptual approval on how much can be altered during the conceptual approval to the final, basically, approval. And Walter kind of inherited this project, so he was looking to potentially modify some of the view sheds and a couple of smaller interior street layouts that he felt were kind of restricting some of the open space that could be created to create kind of a more open civic space. So the long shtick of it is that, I said, if you need to modify the conceptual approval, you need to move a street, a couple feet here, a couple feet there, it's exactly what it is. It's a conceptual approval, and it's kind of what went back to Dan's comment from earlier is, yes, you can adjust it slightly, depending on certain factors. So this is a project that spanned over, at least feels like 3 years now, ever since I've been on the board. They come back with a work session every year or so. So I think they're trying to tweak it a little bit more, trying to build a little bit more open space into it. And I said, hey, if you're trying to do open space, we're all for it. So I think that's kind of the gist that I got. Karen, you were there as well. Did you have any other kind of updates that you feel were pertinent to the group?
Well, I'm a newcomer to this issue, but I was when I looked at the drawings, that were all I couldn't tell who did what when. But I liked the one that, as it turns out, is the one that you guys did. That had the, it didn't have the grand.
The grand street from a couple designs ago. Yeah.
So it was, and I really, he asked me, and I told him I really thought it was a really good plan, and that. I know that you were tweaking it, trying to get some more roads taken out or, things that opened up a little bit more. Anyway.
Yeah, and I thought it was good that they finally had, so that was the first time, Karen, that they had actually presented had the thought of, okay, how tall are these buildings going to be? And what kind of setbacks and kind of similar kind of lot coverage and things like that they had. So it was useful. Oh, Bruce is back. Just in time.
Just in time.
He's muted. I think you have to unmute yourself, Bruce, maybe. There you go.
I'd just say two things. My internet dropped. So I was participating by phone, but there's no way to break in to let you know to unmute me.
On the phone.
So I don't think it affected the last vote, but I was there.
Okay.
Your question was about Reston Town Center North and the meeting there?
Yeah. What was your takeaway, Bruce?
Well, my takeaway is that I think they're moving forward with the site plan based on the DRB's decision. And at this point, there's some things that they're looking to see whether it could be, my word, tweaked to address some things. And I would say that one of the supervisor's primary interest is expanding if possible, the open space for the public space. And there's some opportunity there perhaps that will come to us to take a look at where there's a central green and then there's a playing field and how they play together to perhaps open up more opportunity for a greater public space to be available by having those two spaces play together. I think that was I think one of the primary things that they're going to look to the DRB to perhaps step in at the appropriate time when they move a little bit further. I think that I was looking through my notes of what they have in mind, but from the supervisor's point of view, that seemed to be one of his primary concerns and where he's looking for our involvement.
Yeah, and other feedback I gave him also was that I felt the original kind of zoning that they proposed was very heavy on multifamily buildings that I feel don't have the desire right now that they maybe once did, especially how far out they are from kind of getting to the metro station there. So looking at providing a little bit lower scale, either garden style apartments or townhouses or something that kind of currently, if you kind of go around the town center now, there's already kind of these pocket neighborhoods of townhouses, kind of maybe adjusting some of the blocks to kind of accept more housing like what we reviewed tonight, right, at Vantage Hill. That style of housing could potentially work in that area because it's more prevalent in that area. So those were kind of the takeaways that I took, but it does look like they're moving forward, which is, good news for the community because there's, a big abandoned building back there. There's, it's going to happen eventually. So it's better sooner than later. So we'll see if and when they plan on coming to the board kind of with the kind of the next steps of what they're thinking. One thing I did ask them to do is make sure to cut us some streetscape kind of sections and really understand the volumes of what they're thinking. And there's a really strong slope on that site. There's a lot of topography, grades and ups and downs, and to really see that on paper in a model would be really a great to kind of see so we can digest it better. But next thing on the agenda.
I just want to mention one of the other things that I think that he'll be coming to us to talk about related. I was just found the rest of my notes. And it goes to, there's an overall agreement that precedes any of our involvement as to how much open space there's going to be in that, in the town center north. And Walter Alcorn indicated that he's probably going to look to us to do some trade-offs on some of the open space, particularly the streetscapes, to he wants more central green. So right now we, as a DRB, made sure that a lot of the streetscape had adequate space for plantings, and he wants to reduce that, I think, to get more for the open green, to get to the central green. So there's going to be some discussion there about how willing we are to come off the plan that was approved previously, I guess last summer, in terms of, again, to take some of the greenery that we had in mind and take it off the streets and put it into the central green.
Yeah, and I guess we'll see what they come back with from a setback standpoint and
Right.
what they're, if they're thinking, 8 feet or they're thinking 20 feet, or, he's thinking more, maybe move everything a little bit closer and provide more green space in a more centralized, usable spot.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what my understanding was that he was looking at. So
when you're
yes,
done,
Karen, go ahead.
can you talk for a second? I just want to finish one thing. He sees this north area as being what Robert Simon originally wanted for the town center, and which was it for it to be a real community space. And I think that's his ultimate goal. So.
Yeah, and I think we have a unique situation where this is, it's in Reston, so it's for rest in residence, whereas, RTC is private property technically. So,
Yeah, really.
it's kind of a, he's trying to create a space for the residents,
Right.
that we can utilize as rest in residence, and it's not a private space that you have to rent out or whatever it might be. As residents, we have the right to kind of get there. So overall, it definitely helps. If you guys haven't been to the site, I definitely recommend before, if they do get on the board for next month or the following month or whenever they're coming, please go visit the site, walk around, orient yourself, because it really does help. I hadn't been back there all the way to the back behind kind of the abandoned old rehab center. And man, I didn't even realize, kind of what's the topography back there. So it definitely helps to be back there and see it in person. So definitely strongly recommend.
I just wanted, so everyone's aware, yes, topography is really important. That was one of the main problems. But I also wanted to point out, it's one of the few areas in Reston that's both under the jurisdiction of the DRB, it's part of and it's a transit station area. So it is, unlike any other areas, or unlike most areas that we deal with. Because the rest of the transit station area, for the most part, almost entirely, but not entirely, we've had no say in. We being the DRB.
Yeah, especially since they've disbanded their review board years ago.
Right.
And there's actually a portion of the site that's part of RTC or RTC, technically RTC Town Center guidelines. It's right now they just have proposed trees there, but there's actually like a small sliver that's actually under the jurisdiction of RTC, which is kind of funny. But yeah. So moving on to the calendar, I think the staff just wanted me to point it out to people. Take a look, make sure if you have any problems, let us know. Does staff have an update on any of our vacant positions? Have we been able to?
So sure, I can give you an update. I'm not sure how the contact was made, but Julie has been in communication with an architect. We do have 2 design professional positions that are open, and I believe he was invited to attend tonight's meeting, but I think there was a schedule conflict. But I've been in communication with him as of this week, and hopefully he shows interest and submits an application. But if you continue to know of an architect and a landscape architect or an urban planner, let us know.
Yeah, it would have been good. Julie, I remember talking to Julie. She said he likes complex projects. There would have been 3 great complex projects to view tonight. So
yeah, tonight was a perfect night to watch or to kind of observe.
Yeah. He can always go rewatch the 4-hour video. So. All right. Well, I think that's all we have tonight, guys. Thanks for sticking with us. It was a long one, but I think we got some good stuff done. So do I hear a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great. Motion passes. All right, guys. Have a good night.
Thank
Appreciate it.
you.
Good night, everybody.
Have a good weekend.
Have a happy Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
See ya.
Thanksgiving.
You too, man.
Bye.